of emotions that have been lingering for quite a while. Why? Because actually today is at exactly 12 a.m. It is going to be a new year where everybody around the world is going to be anchored into 2024. And also, today comes with double anticipation and is pregnant because the president of the country, His Excellency Paul Biya, is going to be giving his State of the Nation address. Of course, this address always comes and it's enveloped with a lot. It is a complete assessment of the year that has passed or wore on, and it is actually an anticipation and promises eulogies of the coming year. What are your anticipation? Matters today is going to be zooming into Bia's speech and likewise getting into the nooks and crannies of Cameroon, especially the Boya municipality, to see how people have been savoring and enjoying their Christmas and what they are anticipating for the new year. The number to call and to react on the program is on your television screen. With me to how to be on this beautiful program for the next 4 hours, I have a cream of panelists who have been tested, trialed, and of course their intellect is second to none. They have brains like that of a dolphin, and most of them have brains like that of a sponge. They are here to give the program all the shimmers, all the panache that it deserves, and to take it to the pinnacle of excitement. And I hope you viewers are going to be excited, because if I were you, I'm going to be gathered and I'm going to be seated right there with my didactic materials, because we are about to unleash politics. Today on the talking point, we are looking at criticizing and analyzing the Bia's regime, appraising as well the Bia's regime, if he was able to meet up expectations throughout 2023, and what his promises are going to be in his State of the Nation address at exactly 8 p.m. and if it makes sense, and if of course we envisage or envision that he is going to be meeting up with all of those promises that he's going to be spewing in his State of the Nation address. Beginning to introduce my panelists, I have somebody who is very young and an elegant gentleman who always comes here to talk politics and is always a square peg in a square hole. Dr. Busi Enes is an academic doctor in an academic doctor and also a psychopolitical analyst. You're welcome, doctor.
Thank you very much, Madam, the moderator. Today we're going to I want to greet my co-panelists too. I think they will be talking very critical issues that concern our country, a retrospect of 2023. And I want to say that 2023 has been a very difficult year in this country, where especially in the Northwest and Southwest regions, where His Excellency President Paul Biya thought that the Anglophone crisis was coming down. But I want to say that many people have been dying in the Northwest and Southwest in recent times. And we have seen situations where people are still being killed in Bachibo and other places. We have seen brutal killings of people. And the military is still there combating and fighting and protecting the people. I want to say that this year, 2023, has not been the best year because economically things have been difficult. We have seen fuel shortages in Cameroon, and we have seen a lot of economic hardship, price hike in Cameroon, and we have seen the level of development in Cameroon has been so slow infrastructurally. Looking at the ring roads that President Paul Biya promised to do in the Northwest and Southwest, they have been unable to construct the ring roads and so on, Madam the moderator. I want to say that it has been a difficult year, and I was saying that 2025 will be an election year in this country, where we think that we have seen in recent times when opposition parties in the country, in their conventions, they have elected their leaders, their chairmen, and so on, and we're seeing oppositions who want to come for a coalition and forming an alliance and so on, Madam the moderator, to overcome His Excellency President Paul Biya in 2025. That will not be very easy. And also we are looking at this year, also looking at the new year. His Excellency President Paul Biya will be talking about the CAN 20, the CAN that will be starting very soon in Ivory Coast too. I think that President Paul Biya will also talk about that, because it's very, very important. Because the indomitable lions of Cameroon will play in the CAN, and I think that President Paul Biya will be talking about that. It's very important. President Paul Biya also will be talking about a lot of issues politically, economically, socially, and so on. I want to look at it from all perspectives and security-wise too. And I think that today we'll be looking at a retrospect of the past year and also the future years to come, especially looking at it from a futuristic perspective, especially 2024 and 2024, whether we'll have our municipal elections before 2025 or not. I think that President Pobia will say many things today about the nation. Thank you.
And of course, that was a handful of anticipation right there from Dr. Busi Ernest, who is a psychopolitical analyst, and he's always here giving his appearance and making sure that the program has the buoyance that it sure deserves. Walking to the next political analyst, who is always here to give matters the befitting touch and to attire it, to give it that amazing costume each time he's here, is no other person than Mr. Sinju Armstrong, who is a social and a political commentator here on the program. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator.
To begin with, I think we have had Dr. Busi here outline a few of his anticipations, and I know there is a lot of quest in your chest at this particular moment, thinking of what President Pobia at this time would be saying or maybe would not say. What do you think would feature in his speech before I get into asking you how you're gearing up and bracing up towards the new year?
Okay, thank you. I think as we await the president address at 8 p.m., Dr. Busi outlined some of the things that the president will mention. Of course, it's important to understand that most of the things that he's going to say will center around economic security, politics. The 2025 election is upcoming, and of course, and preparation. Government need to start preparing now, and so I want to think the president will likely dwell more on security. In the last part of 2023, we have had a lot of security challenges, especially in the northwest and southwest, in the far north, and of course those on the highway and so on and so forth. So the issue of security is one of the things that the president wants to look at. Also, the CAN 2023 in Cote d'Ivoire, which I think the president will equally focus on, and even looking at the economic sector. You remember in 2022, breaking 2023, the president has the war in Ukraine, which he didn't mention, affected the provision of basic necessity that we had. So and of course there was certain measure which the president announced in 2023, the import substitution the policy. So definitely we'll be looking at that also. So I think the president will equally look at politics. Like I said, in 2025 we are going to have election, and we saw how different political party, opposition political party, have been gearing up. And one of the issue which I think the president will have about Cameroonians to enroll to register their name for with the LECAM, which is very important because the president will hit on the fact that Cameroon is a country of democracy. Of course, everything goes through the ballot. So I think those are the things that he will be touching this evening, and that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sinju Armstrong, and I know that that is just a little fraction of the heavy pack that you brought on matters today. Another big weight who is not randomly seen, but each time we call him, he always makes it a point of interest to always respond, and his presence here matters a lot on matters. We are talking about Mr. Sama Abang-Magua, a social commentator, and of course, he is the author of Wunamumu Dondu. I know a lot of people must have heard that, and it's a social media platform, and he uses that for social satire. You're welcome, Mr. Sama.
It's my pleasure, Mabel. I'm glad to be on set. I was to examine what 2023 has been for Cameroonians and what we envisage as the prospects for 2024. I hope we'll be able to have what it takes to analyze the speech of the head of state, which is always not an easy one to make predictions and projections. Again, good evening to our viewership and to the gentlemen with me on the platform.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Sama is no small fry, and I know that your impact today on matter is really going to propel the program this evening. Dr. Busi, maybe we derail a little bit and you tell us, in your locality, in your environment, how do you think people at this particular time are preparing, for the crossover? We hear a lot of people saying that they are going to church. Do you think, as a political and psycho and even social commentator, do you think that is a befitting way to do a crossover or to prepare for, an upcoming new year?
Yeah. I think that spiritually is very important. Going to church is very, very important because it's a new year. And I think that if people are going to church, I think that is something that is very, very spiritual, and we need to promote that. And I think that they want to start a new year with a lot of spirituality, with a lot of, they want to thank God, because I think that life is given by God, and it's an opportunity for people to thank God for another year given by God. So I think that is the best way for you to go to another year, because rather than spending the year drinking and getting drunk or engaged in a lot of deviant behavior, antisocial behavior and so on, I think that people need to build their psychosocial mind by investing spiritually too, because we are talking about our country today. We have seen a lot of youth and moral decadence in our country in recent times. Today, lately we saw children drinking alcohol, children of ages 8, 7 and so on, how they were drinking alcohol, 6 years. I want to say that, madam, it's not really healthy for their mental health. It's not healthy for their psychosocial health. If you can see children at the age of 6 years drinking alcohol. So I think that when parents, they have to play a lot of role to bring up the children, because we are talking about Cameroon, and you cannot build Cameroon by thinking only about the government. It's not all about the government. It's all about the micro and the macro society. The micro and the macro society has to build the nation. And I want to say it's the responsibility of parents also to take their children to church so that they can be embedded with some moral principles. And I want to say that if you look at the high level of antisocial behavior today, the high level of violence today in our society, we're seeing violence, and we're seeing children who are holding guns in the northwest and southwest today. Children at the ages 14, 13 years, 15 years, they are holding guns today, and they are causing a lot of harm and catastrophe today because of what? Because of the lack of moral principles. So most parents are not playing their role again. So it's a day, it should be a day for family ritual, where families have to come together and think about the years ahead. Look at their strength and their weaknesses in the past year, and look at the way forward. And I think that looking at the way forward is very good. But let me look at it from a broader perspective, because we are looking at 2023 in retrospect. And I want to say that His Excellency President Paul Biya will be looking at local governance in Cameroon, because President Paul Biya will be looking at the issue of decentralization. He will talk about the issue of decentralization today. Looking at the issue of decentralization, I think that President Paul Biya will reiterate that the regional presidents, the mayors, they have to fast track the issue of decentralization. And we are talking about decentralization today, Madam the moderator, when our local councils and our regional councils, we look at the level of projects, that in our regions today, you will see that the people don't even know what the regional presidents are doing. To be candid, we have to be honest to be the country, because we still have governors there, and the governors are still the authorities there who are appointed, while the regional presidents are elected, and the governors are the supervisory bodies there. So if you look at Buea today, we have a regional president in Buea. Ask them, what are the projects that they have been able to do for the common people here in Buea for us to see? And you will see that most of the projects that they have been doing, madam, they have been doing rehabilitations. And we have a lot of poor roads, bad roads in Buea today. Go to Munya, go to My 16. We don't have roads in Buea. You ask yourself, what are the regional presidents doing? I think that if you look at if you watch keenly, President Paul Biya will be talking about decentralization today, because we are talking about the Anglophone crisis.
So are you saying his speech cannot be void of that?
No, it will be there. We are talking about regional, because if you look at the Anglophone crisis, we are looking at the solution to the Anglophone crisis. And the solution, the government orientation towards this crisis is all about decentralization. They have taken their position of decentralization, and I want to say that President Paul Biya will be talking about decentralization, he will talk about the regional councils, he will talk about the mayors and so on. And Madam the moderator, I want to say that if you look at it from a greater perspective, I want to say that our mayors, especially here in Buea, we still have a lot to do as regional council is concerned. Because if you look at our primary schools too, you will see that even the mayors, even they have not been doing their best to see that they follow the regional, the decentralization law to fast track issues of decentralization, even the regional presidents and so on. And President Paul Biya talk about the Northwest and Southwest, talking about the special status, madam. I want to say that the issue of the special status is not well known by the common man, and he will also reiterate about the special status again. And I want to say that the governance, the regime of President Paul Biya is all about decentralization. Whether we like it or not, he will be talking about how the decentralization has been working. And President Paul Biya will always say that decentralization has been working. But the truth is that if we look at decentralization in this context in the Northwest and Southwest, is really slow, because I've not seen a critical project that has been done by these regional presidents. We are talking about Buea today, and you will see that Buea is dark at night, no street lights. I'm asking myself, what are the mayors doing? We are talking about Buea today, no lights in Buea, because we should start from our own local environments here. I'm talking about Buea today, bad roads, and they will say that they are waiting for the central government.
Does this tally with the popular saying that charity begins at home?
Exactly. We have to start at home, because you are talking about decentralization. And if we want to see decentralization, it should start at home. Because if you are talking about federation, you look at federation from the local governments. We are talking about decentralization here in Buea, and you look at Buea today, you will not see any development that is coming from our local councils, even from the regional councils and so on. We need to see decentralization from an effective perspective. And also, I want to say President Paul Biya also be talking about security. But madam, if you look at security, I want to also thank the military. The military, they have been doing a lot. They have been doing a lot to combat the non-state actors, because the non-state actors, most of them have caused harm to the denizens of the Northwest and Southwest region. I think that though there are some bad elements, but I want to say that security-wise, the military, they have done their best in 2024 as compared to 2020. In 2023 as compared to 2022. If you look at what they have been doing, you will see that the Ngabo incidents and other incidents that some of this military did, you will see that in 2023 most of the military personnel, they were more prudent, and they were more protective, they were more rational, and they were more close to the people, to tell you that the military, at least, they are more conscious now than before. I think that President Paul Biya will thank the military. They have been doing a good job. Economically, I want to say that Cameroon has not been the best in 2023. There have been a lot of price hike, difficulties, hardship. And I want to thank President Paul Biya for one thing. Despite all the crisis, salaries of civil servants has always been paid, despite our crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions. But I want to say that we need to do more than that. Anyways, even educational-wise, President Paul Biya will talk about education too. But I want to say that if you critically look at, he will talk about the youth. Because our youths in Northwest and Southwest and in Cameroon, there have been a lot of antisocial behavior in the Northwest and Southwest and in Cameroon, where we see a lot of violence among the youths. They are holding guns, some stab their teachers, the drugs, cyber criminality, deviant and so on. A lot of deviant behavior. So group dynamics amongst adolescents, gangs and so on. So I think that if our youths are not productive, then the future will never be productive, because we need to build youth with values. If the values are not there, sometimes there's this philosopher called Pestalozzi. He says that people are born good, but society corrupts their mind. But I want to ask, is it the government that corrupts the mind of the youth, or is it the macro society? So we have a lot of role to play for a better 2024.
Yeah, for a better 2024. And of course, Dr. Busi, we are going to be examining and x-raying the veracity of that. President Paul Biya in this part one last year said a lot of things, or this year, if I must say, 2022 crossing over to 2023, said a lot of things. And I will need to be singling out some of the things that his speech or State to the Nation address, the elements that it was contained, and let's examine it so far if those were accomplished. Mr. Sama, I would like us to expound about the COVID-19. In his State of the Nation address in 2022, he thanked and said the COVID-19 has been contained, and of course measures have been put by medics and government to roll out the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think that has been met effectively? What could be your appraisal about that?
I think Mabel is just about playing to the gallery. The politics and the gimmicks behind COVID-19 go far deeper than presidential speeches. Why do I say so? We saw how COVID-19 epidemic was alleged to be wiping out hundreds of thousands in Brazil, in Argentina, in the US, in China, which are countries paradoxically with the highest level of medical technology and expertise. We saw how it was alleged that thousands were dying and being buried in mass graves in Southern America, in Brazil particularly. How many were killed? How many persons were declared dead in the US and in other countries? With the most sophisticated medical and scientific platforms, countries that our politicians run to for medical pilgrimage when they cannot treat themselves of ordinary malaria here and typhoid, they go over there. And those were the same countries that could not contain COVID-19. And a country, third world, or less than a third world country like Cameroon, claims that it is as a result of the measures that were put in place, political administrative measures that were put in place that were able to contain COVID-19. To me, it's quite laughable. It's a paradox that that countries that are so rudimentarily developed in terms of health infrastructure are the ones that claim to have successfully registered the lowest dead rates from COVID. I say hard. So it's were we so suddenly magical and so suddenly?
But there were efforts.
No,
like
we are saying
vaccine that came, the Johnson
again. I said, thank God that we registered very few deaths. But was it as a result of administrative and political strategies put in place that helped us or enabled us to successfully combat COVID? That as compared to countries with the highest level of medical expertise, COVID defeated them, and we here who cannot fabricate a tablet of Nevaquin or aspirin and relying on contromedicine, or I hear a minister in this republic was named as a follow-up of the COVID-19 prescription, Dr. Fimpangras, the woman of technological development, Dr. Mrs. Magdalene Twente, because at a certain point she was prescribing Fevergrass and then calling it Fimpangras as a palliative for COVID. So maybe because of those tradi practitioner prescriptions, that's why we were able to overcome COVID. But again, I am one of those who I don't want to say whether I'm a fatalist or not, but I'm one of those who thinks that we live in a country that is in the hands of unknown gods, and whatever successes we have registered in this country has little or nothing to do with the conscious policies put in place. Whatever successes we have had in this country, no. You listen to me. You just listen to me. Let me end, Mabel. So, I want to think that it is miraculous that COVID-19 didn't kill in Cameroon as much as it did in countries paradoxically with the best medical infrastructure and technology.
And this brings me to the question that I want to ask.
That is why I say it is blind foolhardiness when we want to take credit for the smaller deaths that we had being due to our conscious efforts as a people. I want to think that we are far from that.
Okay, so are you saying that Cameroon was void of the COVID-19 pandemic in the first place, or the numbers are being exaggerated? Or is a political scheme and maneuver?
The politics and dynamics behind COVID-19 go beyond what we see and what we hear. And I don't want to be in that camp of those who believe in conspiracy, that there was a COVID-19 conspiracy. But I think the entire truths about COVID-19 have not been told. The entire truths about COVID-19 have not been told. And so I don't want to be carried away. One, I don't want to be on the side of those who think that it was entirely a conspiracy. But I also do not want to be on the side of the blind and gullible masses who think that government did a good job, that our government, our notorious government, suddenly did a marvelous job to have been able to succeed where the gods of medicine and science have failed. I still just think that it puts me in the middle to ask the same questions that doubting Thomases have asked. Was there really a COVID-19? Was it as deadly as we were made to believe? Was it as easily contractable as we were made to believe? Was COVID-19 really what we were told that it was? And so I don't want to be a conspirator, but I also want to be on the safe side, not to also be a blind follower of mass media propaganda.
You know, Mr. Sama and the panelists here, the COVID-19 was just a very small, a very tiny fragment of what was contained in the President's 2022 speech and his New Year speech, amongst which Mr. Sinjo Armstrong, he highlighted and elaborated on, you know, imports and exports and food security in the country. Do you think the custom at that level are doing quite a lot, amounting of enormous effort to endeavor that this thing is, you know, actually stamped out and rolled out in the country?
Okay, thank you. You know, in their speech last year, you talk about import substitution, because the government realized that they were spending so much as far as subsidies on importation. And of course, I want to think that on different occasions, the president have talking about spoken on extensively on agriculture and the importance of Cameroonians to get back to the farm, because that is the only thing that can produce us local food, which we can be able to actually meet up. But again, I want to think that government is not really encouraging the farmers as far as that is concerned, because even when the president talks about Cameroonians taking up agriculture, we find it very difficult in many instances where they have been encouraged. So last year you talk about import substitution, of course, and we see many food rights being imported, and you want to know that even in Cameroon here we produce rice. There in the plain there's rice. I think in the north they produce rice. But it will be shocking to understand that during this festive period, if you ask those who bought rice, they will think that they will tell you that the rice they cooked at home, rice that be imported. How many of us consume the locally produced rice or food that we have here? We cannot find that. I was talking with someone, and the person showed me the idea that, you know, even the banana, the plantain that CDC produce, that what they consume over there abroad is a first grade. they export everything, and what we go to the market to find, those things are things that have been discarded, and that's what we consume. So I think there is so much that needs to be done as far that encouraging farmers, assisting, granting subsidies to farmers so that they can be able to produce. I think there was a farmer bank. I think Dr. Post, the farmer bank that was created. I don't know how far that has been gone to see that farmer can be encouraged. But I think that there is still a problem on that. Even that the president mentioned last year, but it's still a challenge. Dr. Pusi talked about decentralization, which I think is a very important point. But again, I have said it time again with that number. In my own personal opinion, I think decentralization has really failed. It is not really a panacea to actually address, the local problems that we are currently facing. Because for 20 years we had decentralization. It came with another name, effective decentralization, which we are unable to actually see what decentralization is talking about, because he was just citing some of the issues that many mayors or many city council they have. Because I see decentralization like selling a goat and holding the rope at the same time, because even they talk of transfer of powers, transfer of competencies, transfer of resources to local administration, but they don't have. How come that a mayor cannot execute a simple project of even maintaining a road? It's terrible. There was one time that the route around GC board had an issue. I remember very well when the council came out to see how they can even try to maintain it. It was extremely difficult. So I want to think that decentralization is not actually the problem. What I see that can be feasible is the special status. What I see that can be feasible, because decentralization is even more complex in Northwest and Southwest, talk less of Cameroon as a whole. So I think that there have to be awareness of special status, and some of those points that we agree on special status should be implemented. That will really address the issue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sama. We have been joined by a prolific political analyst as well, who is a member of the House, and he's always here to give the program, the panache that it deserves. And I'm not taking it for granted that at a very short notice he was here, and his impact on the program today is going to be tremendous. No other person than the MRC militant, Mr. Njomo Siri Popiano. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mabel. Thanks for giving me the chance to share this panel with Mr. Sama, Dr. Busi, Mr. Armstrong, and maybe Mr. Nzifo, who is announcing somewhere around the corridor. It's always a pleasure to be back home. Hi TV is one of those media that gave us the aura when we need it, and now that we are seeking our way to have a chance to manage a city like Buea or even Cameroon, I think you giving us again an opportunity to do a retrospective on what Mr. Biya promised us at the beginning of 2023 and what he has been able to realize. I think it is very important. If you permit me to directly jump into some of the promises that Mr. Biya did in 2022, that's on the 31st of December. He, talking about mega project, he spoke about mining, citing the example of Kribi and other mining resources. I want to quote him verbally when he was saying that Cameroon is still endowed with a lot of mineral resources, that most people think we have exhausted our potential, but the underground is still very fertile, and that it is only in 2023 that he is going to embark giantly on exploring the soil. And just as we enter 2023, few months into the year, we heard that the Minister of Mine and Mineral Resources, Minister Dodon Doke, dropped dead. Some people, notably the Minister of Public Service, Minister Joseph Lee, accused other attendee of his funeral of being responsible of his death. It is alleged that he was given, he was precipitated to the other world. And I'm bringing him in because this CPTM will be hiding behind his death, will be hiding behind his demise to justify the fact that the whole year has gone through without any mining activity being started. And the mining was equally announced as a substitute or as a complement.
Would you be able to say that confidently, that no mining activity has gone in?
If not, the only gas plants that we can pretend that have seen an evolution is the Kribi gas plant that produces only 22.5 megawatt.
Well, at least that is an evolution.
But now, the operator of that gas plant, Globelec, are claiming 8 billion times 15 months to Mr. Biya's government, who have been owing Eneo, which is just a marketing enterprise. So you may have known that they gave them, the deadline was the 27. I think 27 have passed. So if we are still having light, it means that the government might have paid certain part, because they gave them a conditional good faith of 40 billion that they were supposed to pay before we have continuous light. When we talk of light, we want to enjoy light even for 6 hours continuously. That's where we can be sure that there is no power failure. So I just wanted to explain to you that from the perspective of mining, that is what Mr. Biya promised Cameroonian. And unfortunately, you permit me, if he promised 3 mining exploration and that we only had 1 that started and that is not generating to full capacity, we should be able to say that they really failed in that domain.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Siri. I think the other voices here are going to be adding weight to what you're saying. But before we actually introduce Mr. Cyril on the program, one of the heavyweights and the heavy voices that we have, Mr. Sama was about to cue in from where Mr. Sinjo Armstrong talked about the importation and exportation, Mr. Sama. And I think in this you would want to give us a full pack. Let's look at the gas situation in the country, the upsurge of prices and all of that, together with the import and export situation. What do you have to say about this? Because it was present in Biya's 2022 end of year speech that was anchoring the 2023 new year.
I think that without claiming to be an economist, I can't recall any particular calendar year when Cameroon recorded a positive balance of payment in its trade transactions, whether we're talking of bilateral trade or should I say multilateral trade. I really want to think that we can't really pinpoint a particular year where we have had a positive balance sheet, where our exports have been more than our imports. We haven't had, because unfortunately, we are a country that exports the raw materials and import the finished materials from the same raw materials that we export. It will surprise you to know that Cameroon is an oil producing nation, but the oil and gas and petrol that we use, we import. So we like export the crude raw material and import the finished goods. And that is why recently, or even still ongoing, we have the issue of fuel scarcity. Because as the minister tried to explain, failingly tried to explain, there was an issue of loading at the port of Cotonou, Benin, and the ships that had to transport petrol and other gas products from Benin to Cameroon had issues of unloading. But again, it would surprise people that but we have a refinery in Limbe, and we have petrol under the soils of Ndian and Ikondo Titi, but we still import because we largely we do not use what we produce. We rather use what we import. And again, it has always been laughable, but it is a truism that Cameroon is a country that still imports toothpick, the ordinary wooden toothpick that we use on our dining tables, which is sold at the stores for 100 francs. But with all the Indian bamboos that we have, all the traditional bamboo plants that we have, and all the timber that we have, we can still go as low as importing toothpick, Mabel. What Sinjo said is quite true. That we have all the arable land where we can do rice cultivation.
But don't you think at this
the rice plantations that were created in Sancho in the West region have all been abandoned? I don't know how many households in this country eat on their tables locally produced rice from Semri in the north or UMVDA in Dub. Because we have a government that does not prioritize the consumption of our own.
The question, Mr. Sama, would be if we have industries that can manufacture.
It is not $1 million question, baby. It's $1,000 question. It's as cheap as 1,000 francs. Don't even get to a level of $1. No. Before you talk of $1 million, no, it is as cheap as 1,000 francs. That we have a government that has failed to create an environment where the investors are brought to produce the goods, harvest the raw materials, and produce domestically, as it is done in some other countries. That is why more than 90% of the timber that is exploited from the southwest in Manu division, from the forests of the east and the south, are exported. The timber isn't used here. But what is imported are the finished products from the timber, which is not just an issue of whether we have the industries, but whether we have the bargaining force to compel those investors to create those industries here. Because creating those industries here means that you create jobs and you make the cost of those commodities cheaper. So it is not an issue of whether we have what it takes to like create those industries to use the raw material. It is whether we have what it takes to compel those investors. What does it take? Do we have those who have the power to bargain when those investors come? It is a very difficult ballgame, especially given that they will hide behind the fact that we don't have a good judiciary system, so they cannot invest their monies in a country where their interests are not protected by the judiciary. They will tell you that because of security risk and so on and so forth, which is true. And that is why once you have a low index of democratization and the rule of law, it plays against you when it comes to those bargaining transactions. So I have a worry. Yes, I may have a worry with what Dr. Busi said. Throwing the blame on local administrators and municipal administrators and those at the foothold of the decentralization drive, that it is largely their fault that we aren't seeing the dividends of decentralization. I want to take exception to that, because I think, as Armstrong said, the decentralization illusion is just a chimera created by the government to play for time and give the impression that there is a genuine intention to give governance to local collectivities. Virtually, in support to what Armstrong said, government sells the goat and does not only keep the tether or the rope to itself, it keeps even the ownership right over the goat. Because it would not surprise you to understand why even the public investment budget for this year will still carry issues, items, so-called investment items that are solely under the prerogatives of municipal councils. And so it is It is not like government has created a favorable environment for the authorities to work and they don't want to work or they don't know how to work. The government simply does not want them to work, because empowering them in terms of human resources and financial resources and the legal provisions for them to do their work means you will be removing meat from the plates of those in the parlor who thinks that they still have author's rights and ownership rights of what we should eat, when we eat, and how we eat, and whether we use toothpick or not. So it is not the fault of, yes, we have areas where we think that local administrators have failed, especially when it comes to hygiene and sanitation and beautification of their cities. I may add my voice to what Dr. Busi said. As much as we are told that the road from Mile 17 to the Boya Central Police Station, the main boulevard, is a central government road, which is out of the prerogative of the council. But I don't know what it takes a council to clear off the mud that has accumulated in front of the GCE board for so many years. I don't know what, if the same council can like contract Izakam workers to clean the roads. I don't know whether removing mud is not part of cleaning the road. I don't know whether maintaining drainage is not part of cleaning, because I see their workers remove refuse along drainage during the rainy season. But if you have never known, look just somewhere opposite Beno Bakery, on the other side of the road leading to Fakoship. There is a linen palm tree on the slope there that is on the, I wonder whether we need Yaoundé to come and help us clean the sides of our roads, make them less deadly to our population. I think that as much as we blame government for not giving local collectivities what they deserve to effectively work, but again, we expect that the council should be more proactive, especially in those little areas that we know fall within their prerogatives.
Let's look at the council and other units being proactive. In their speech, ladies and gentlemen, last year, he actually highlighted the supply of water, admitting that some towns, like the economic capital of Cameroon, Douala, and likewise the heartbeat of the nation, Yaoundé, has been suffering constant water shortage, Mr. Cyril. And he even promised that they are going to do some sort of catchment from River Sanaga in order to make sure that, these towns, especially Yaoundé, doesn't run out of water supply. Has that been able to meet, or has that been met? And what is your appraisal about that?
Some 3 months to December, knowing that the time was running out, the Minister of Water and Energy Resources, Gaston Elundu, actually, with the cooperation of some Chinese in Yaoundé, built some tank, and they were announcing that all Yaoundé will actually be watered by the services of I think it's Kamwata now. Then in the same light, I think the same 2023, Kamwata had the new GM, who was a former Secretary General of FECAFOOT, and he happened to have revitalized that particular ministry. Whether the project announced in our major city have actually seen the order of the day, contrary to that of mine, I will give an affirmative answer to it, that yes, indeed, we saw some project initiated, especially in the central region and in Yaoundé precisely. For Douala, what we saw is the drainage system. They improve on the drainage system in Douala, digging more holes and especially secondary roads within the city, where because of reconstruction, maybe individuals have embarked on destroying the initial pipe. They went around and tried to replace them. So if Douala and Yaoundé, as of now, we haven't heard, at least for the past 3 months, we have not heard any of this city come out and lament as it was the case in 2022.
It means there's a tremendous impact.
No, we cannot give those qualifications because they have meaning, and those who are following us are keen to know that we are measuring our worth. I think they have just levied their pains. We should put it that way. And in the same city, Douala, you want to know that there are neighborhoods, especially peripheral neighborhoods, that still have difficulty to access pipe-borne water. We are talking at a time where the new management of Kamwata truly has made a lot of things easy. Even here in Buea, for those who use Kamwata, I think we have less complaints recently than it was the case before. Buea, for example, is a city that have known water shortages for long. I don't want to undermine the effort of the Mafani's administration, I mean the local administrator who have dug some few pipe-borne water here and there, what they call forage, to mitigate that scarcity we have known in the past. But those who are equally using Kamwata, it is the case with some offices, administrative offices or business offices, have regularly have water flow in their tap and of good quality. But one problem in the past was that people were having water flow in their tap, but the quality was not good. The quality was a questionable quality that defied the initial lesson we learned in clean water when we were back in primary school. The clean water has no color, has no taste, has no odor. But we almost got used to water that are colored, that are tasteful, or that even have odor. All that was before 2023. So I really want to raise a positive note on the aspect of water provision in urban cities.
Okay, while we are analyzing how 2022 or 2023 has been, of course, and assessing Bia's speech in 2022, we are likewise x-raying some of the shortcomings as well as some of the strengths, and this is done by a cream of prolific and proficient panel members and voices that I have here. And of course, dear televiewers, you can join and be a part of this program through the number that you find on your television screen. And likewise, this program is being streamed on Facebook at Hi TV Cameroon, and there you can watch the program as you make merry or prepare to make merry ahead of the new year. We have a reaction here. I'm just going to take one reaction, and just to remind you that this program in about 24 minutes is going to be paused so that we tune or attune ourselves to the President's State of the Nation address, and after that my panelists and I are going to be examining and analyzing what he has highlighted as keynotes in his address. This one says, good evening to you all. This is a perfect match. Mabel, your panelists are super awesome. Happy New Year to them in advance. Following up the program, very interesting with my family. This is Desmond writing all the way from Buea, Bolifamba. Thank you so much, Desmond. It feels good to know that you are watching, and of course a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year to you and your family. And talking about the new year came early with Mr. Ndifo Richard, an SDF NEC member who has just joined us, and he's not just joining us, but his brains came along with him. You're welcome, Mr. Ndifo Richard.
Thank you so much, Mabel, and thanks for having me.
And just like you said, 7 o'clock was the time and you were here.
Absolutely.
So, of course, we are giving a review. 2023 came pregnant, and we are trying to assess what did it birth in political strata, in economic scheme, in socio-political angles. What would you have to say, especially as we are midway into the end of the first segment of the program? Let's look at public works. In the domain of public works, how much did Bia achieve, Bia and his team members?
Well, thank you so much. Every year in the public investment budget, some amount of money is allocated for the investment on road maintenance or perhaps construction of new roads. but I cannot really talk about any major road infrastructure that I've seen, because when we look at our road network in Cameroon, one of the major areas that we are looking at, we look at major highways. For example, when we look at the Douala, Komsamba, Bafoussam, Bamenda
just in
highway
retrospect,
road.
I mean, the construction of the Cross River Cameroon Bridge was built. I mean, I think that
Well,
is...
that bridge was a long process that started before 2023, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe completion was done even before 2023. So I am trying to look at the comprehensively the road network situation in Cameroon generally, and to look at what was done in 2023. And I was talking about the major highways. When you look at this road, especially the one I just mentioned from Douala to Komsamba to Bafoussam and all of that, that road, first of all, is very narrow. That is a road that was constructed since the Ahijo era, and was constructed when we did not have the number of traffic, the amount of traffic that we have today. And when you look at that road especially, it is completely damaged. And what we see is that they come and do some kind of patching here and there, and no major improvement is done on that road. As a matter of fact, this particular line is not something that we should be even talking about maintenance. It needs a complete overhaul. Yes, a complete overhaul to meet up with the current time. Like I said, that was a road that was built in the 60s, and we are in 2023, and we have the same road, and we just have maintenance here and there. I don't want to talk about the Douala Yaoundé highway, which has become a death trap. Every other day we hear of accidents in that road. Then, well, the ring road, I noticed that some work has started on the ring road, which is a positive signal that at least it started, because this promise was made over 30 years ago, when the President of the Republic said he would personally supervise the tarring of the ring road. However, better late than never, but we see that some work has started on that road. And then we also realized too that the road network from Babaju to Bamenda, work also intensified in 2023 along that stretch. We noticed that that particular stretch there was some work that really intensified on that, even though it is still very, very slow in that area. But if you permit me,
talking about public works, do you think this automated toll gate tally with public works?
Well, that is something that I personally have concerns with, because
so should we give the government a deserving roundabout?
Of course not. You don't come and you begin by building modern toll gate without first starting by constructing the good road. So they're putting the cart before the horse. So what they were supposed to do was to first of all start off by constructing good roads. After finish constructing those good roads, you now institute modern toll gates on those roads. But what they did was the opposite. They started by building modern toll gates on dilapidated roads. It's only in Cameroon that we see this kind of thing. But if you would permit me, Mabel, to just cue in on this issue of decentralization. Remember that the issue of decentralization in Cameroon is because of the lack of political will on the part of the government. The government has no appetite at all in decentralization. In fact, that is a bitter pill that is being forced down the throat of this government.
And so we see regional councils.
Oh no, those things
and
are
involvement.
No, involvement in what, Mabel? What do they do?
Local administration.
Look, until we have a real, what we call genuine federalism in Cameroon, all these things that they call decentralization and whatever, all of those things, special status, all those things are just like my brother Sama said, they are just buying time.
Okay, so
these
can we
things,
place a finger on what the regional council has done so far?
Look,
since they are very inception.
well, it is not about what they have done, it is about what powers do they have. Do they really have the kind of autonomy that we expect? Because when we talk about decentralization, we are talking about the fact that power has been devolved to the local authorities. Do we have that? Ask even those who are these regional councillors. Ask them. And I'll tell you that 90% of them will tell you that they do not have the authority, the autonomy that we are talking about. And just to mention to you, because a lot of times these CPDM guys, they play with the word federalism and decentralization as if it is the same thing. They try to make us feel that federalism is decentralization. No, let me, if you just permit me, in a very short while, just give you the difference between federalism, especially federalism as proposed by the SDF, and decentralization that the Biya regime is trying to blindfold people with. Now, in terms of federalism, federalism means that the powers that are devolved to the local authorities are constitutionally inscribed, which means that the constitution ascribe those powers to those people, as opposed to decentralization, where those powers are given to them based on the whims and caprices of President Biya himself. But when it is inscribed constitutionally, that will mean that once the federal government, in this case we call it the central government, once they interfere into an area that is supposed to be at the level of the state, that particular state has a right to sue the federal government to court for breaching the constitution and getting into an area that it is not within their competence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I think in line with all the road rehabilitation, Mr. Cyril, Boya and other regions, Douala, have been saluted by landslide and flood. Do you think that this is something that Minister Celestine Kechakutes and alongside Atanganji would have to work in synergy in synchronizing that in 2024 something is done? But then we should not turn a blind eye to the fact that these victims of this flood were saluted by palliative and humanitarian assistance. Do you think at this point the government should receive a thumbs up?
You just asked a very technical question. You permit me extend my condolence message to the people of Bankolo in Yaoundé that actually suffer from this landslides we are talking about. You cited with reason the Minister of Urban Development, Celestine Kechakutes, and her colleague of the territorial administration, Paul Atanganji, because each time there is a hazardous event like the landslide we observe in Bankolo, they rush with mattress and a few buckets, 10-liter bucket, that time that you go and buy in the market at 1.5, and they make sure that they come along with camera and blow whistle on it, blow whistle, blow whistle, blow whistle, announce a couple of things.
And you don't consider that to be a part on the back of these victims?
Let me come. Then at the end of the day, you expect that something serious, a policy will be developed on it, and not. Before Bankolo happened, we had a similar situation in Douala, but Douala was not a natural disaster. It was almost man-made because they built a house. The house has been under the effect of erosion and degradation. Then the house has been fragmented over the years. Then people were still living in the house until the house had to collapse and kill more than 21 persons. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the space of less than 2 months before we had the Bankolo effect, the Minister of Urban Development, Celestine Kechakutes, she ran to Douala, organized a town hall meeting, sent the city mayor to go around and broke houses. We saw that for 2 weeks, and after, I'm not sure until the end of this year we have heard anything that has been done with the victims. The last information we had when I was reading La Nouvelle Expression, which is a French newsletter, they were saying that the victims are complaining in the hospital, notably La Quintinie Hospital. I didn't follow that story up to now, but I just want to give you a method that is regular with the government. Why do I say it's regular? Because the same way they treated the victim in Douala is almost the same they are doing with the case of Bankolo victims that were all, they were all harbored in a party house in Yaoundé too, where they are there up to today. Freelancers go there on their own will, give them some few donations, but the government hasn't had a plan to actually cater for these people and resettle them. You know,
so at this point, which is more important, Mr. Simeon, catering for them or bringing in policy for urban development and infrastructure?
The policies are there, and it has been reinforced by the 2019 law on decentralization. But I'll borrow from the learned colleague, Mr. Nzifo, who said the way the government is going about it, it is more of they specialize in making a lot of noise around it than implementing it on the floor. Because now, for a mayor, being a local mayor or a city mayor, to act on house planning in his city, he needs the approval of other ministries. So it is a collegial thing. It's not more like I get up, I'm the mayor, I just get up and go and start planning the city without having to talk with maybe the DO or talk with my other colleague or the delegation of urban planning and regional development. So all those collegial work has to take place, and they know where the resources are coming from. So neither the divisional delegate of urban housing and regional planning nor the mayor can singly act, and sometimes some of these issues are pressing. So when this situation happened, we saw the Ministry of Urban Development saying that they are going to give authority, strict measures to the local administrator to punish, and that is what happened. We saw in Yaoundé, we saw, for example, the city mayor of Yaoundé going around and broken businesses, broken houses, and saying that, okay, they have given them, they go away. This same thing goes with hygienic situation of our towns, because it has to do with the way people are occupying the urban landscape. And as you said, I don't think we should start clapping here for neither Minister Kecha Kutes nor Paul Atanganji, because their intervention method is not the best. It is more of window dressing and does not give a lasting and sustainable solution to the worry that the victim face over the years.
Over the years. I think that was quite succinct, Mr. Simeon Jomo, but then we cannot run through. We are left with about 6 minutes or so into, all ears and all focus zooming, into the screens while we watch and pay attention, picking all the crumbs and words for words from the president's speech. I want to, go back to Mr. Sama, and maybe we cannot do justice to the program without looking at the health sector. First of all, I think it's a very laudable attempt that the health sector is evolving in Cameroon. Right now, we have, a renal transplant that is for kidney transplant. And, we have the emergence of surgeons and medical infrastructures that are standing tall. Do you think within 2023, government has done or leaned their weight enough in the medical setup in Cameroon?
I would have loved to come back to this question, which is very pertinent, maybe at a later time when I'm able to put my facts on the table. Now, if we look at the internationally homologated patient-doctor ratio, so that we know how many patient, how many medical doctors we have, and how the patient-doctor ratio is in relation to WHO standards. We would also have to look at how government has been able to effectively combat emergent illnesses that we have, and persistent illnesses, even the most common ones. When you are talking about the existence of renal facilities on Friday in Boya, patients of hemodialysis were on strike, as it has been the case not only in Boya but in Bamenda and Bafoussam and every other part of this country. We would be able to also answer the questions: how many Cameroonian trained medical doctors, how many are we training, and who are escaping to other areas for greener pastures. And so that will be able, with that now you'll be able to understand and to better do your scorecard as to whether the health sector is successful or not. That's why I say I would prefer to come back to that maybe after the speech of the president. But let me add my voice to what Cyril said. What we have a government that has opted for what I call the strategy of governance by firefighting, that you allow the fire engulf the house, and then you are hailed as an effective firefighter. But that is fire that you ought to have prevented by, as he said, putting in place the right strategies to prevent urban sprawl, prevent urban slums, prevent landslides and similar catastrophes, that at a time when even poorer countries are constructing double carriage roads, Mr. Ndifo is surprisingly and shockingly praising the government for still constructing a 7-meter road. 60 years after independence. To me, the ring road, as long as it is constructed under the same conditions that the roads of 1960 were constructed, because we shall still be coming back to the same situation in the next 20 years, where we have a footpath in the name of National Road number 1, National Road number 2, and which explains why Douala Yaoundé is not just a deadly road, but it is a national death trap. And we have Bafoussam, Bamenda, Bafoussam, Yaoundé, Douala, and the rest, because we have refused to go beyond the 1960 provisions of road construction, which is 7 meters, and our road, the ring road, which is still being constructed now, second phase from Kumbu to Nkambe, is still 10 meters, 7 meters of the carriageway, and 1.5 meter on each side for pedestrian movement, which means we are still doing the same things that we did in 1960. We are not learning. At a time when we expected, there was a time I heard this same head of state came up to read, I'm sure, a speech that was written for him, I'm sure, without him even knowing the realities on the ground. Said, vous avez demandé he said, les autoroutes, voilà les autoroutes. He said, Cameroonians have asked for express roads. These are the express roads. And I asked whether he knew that these express roads have not been constructed. Douala Yaoundé is still somewhere in the forest around, what do they call this area, Bankomo, or somewhere there. Just a road from Soa to Central Town, they are asking for 300 extra billions to complete a project that has taken them more than 10 years to do. And you said, vous avez demandé les autoroutes, voilà les autoroutes. Where is the autoroute? Because we still limit ourselves, and do not be surprised if it is really not governance by witchcraft. Mabel, how do you expect that? How do you explain that you are giving us the impression that you are constructing an express road, Douala Yaoundé, but you are there planting toll gates, automated toll gates on the old road?
Okay, I think Mr. Sama, you have a reaction here. We are just about 2 minutes into Obia's speech. This one says, "Good evening, Mabel, and to all your prolific panelists. Every 31st of December, our grandfather keeps reading speeches written by people who constitute a danger to this country. In a normal country, the president is supposed to give account of his previous speech before making new promises. Last year, he spoke of acceleration of the fight against corruption, the resumption of the Kumba Ikondo Titi Road project, the Bamenda Banjul Road project, just to name a few. 1 year later, what impact? What achievements? Indeed, our leader have sold shame to buy disgrace. Nembu Stefan, the fourth president." I wonder what this means, but thank you wherever you're watching us. Thank you very much to know that you are watching. I think this is a time, and our broadcasters are ready to tune in to the president's speech. Stay glued to your phone, to your TV, and to your smartphones, however you're following the program, especially on Facebook, where you can catch us at High TV's Facebook page, High TV Cameroon. And immediately after the speech, we have fresh voices who are going to be joining us to give a broad spectrum analysis on the president's speech. Sit back, stick to your screens, and enjoy.
Yes, I want to welcome High TV here in Tuko Main Market for the wonderful things they are doing. And my names are Asum Mawatani, the market master of Tuko Main Market. I want to wish Happy New Year first to my mayor and my street general, all colleagues and my hierarchy, and to my traders at Tuko Main Market, all the women and men in Tuko that constitute the Tuko Main Market, the customers that have been trooping to Tuko Main Market come and buy. So I want to wish them all Happy New Year 2024. And thank God that we all shall see that day and come 2024. Thank you, High TV.
I saw the M3. Yes.
Happy.
For all my colleagues all over Cameroon, all over in Boya Diocese, all over the world, especially my family, my father, my mother, and those of my brothers and sisters, those of them that are home and abroad. I wish them Happy New Year and Happy New Year for their radio station. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, Happy New Year.
For you, eh?
Fine, oh, with the glass for the market today.
Okay.
We don't sell today. Papa God don't bless me double. Ah, with the glass for the market. Tiko market is a blessed market. Very nice market, very fantastic market. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all of you people. That is my daughter, that is my son, that is my grandchildren. Oh!
I wish you Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year for my customer then. Happy New Year for my sister then for church. For GFC Mukumba, GFC Tiko, GFC Mutenya, and GFC Tiko Dwarot, and GFC.
Now with my people and my friends then. For Happy New Year. My name now Anna Ako. Now I greet all my family members and my friends and all the neighbors nearest me.
Thank you.
Okay, I do welcome High TV for the time where they take a vacancy for Tiko Market, because Tiko Market is one of the best market inside Southwest and for Fako division. So we thank High TV, the guys who market. We market in function. We thank our It's okay to where the government win now because they give it time. More sell things that will buy. So be very.
De la reprise économique ont produit des résultats appréciables. La résilience de notre économie s'est confirmée. À preuve, notre taux de croissance a continué de progresser et est estimé à 3,9% en 2023, grâce notamment aux performances du secteur non pétrolier. Les mesures de soutien à la consommation mises en œuvre par le gouvernement ont permis de maîtriser l'inflation et de la stabiliser à environ 6,7%. L'exécution de multiples projets s'est poursuivie ou a été lancée dans différents domaines afin de répondre aux aspirations des populations et d'améliorer leur bien-être. Je voudrais m'attarder quelque peu sur les secteurs les plus sensibles. Le projet d'alimentation en eau potable de la ville de Yaoundé et ses environs à partir du fleuve Sanaga est quasiment achevé. Sa mise en service prochaine permettra de résorber substantiellement le déficit en eau potable de la ville de Yaoundé. Les études relatives au projet d'adduction d'eau potable à Douala et ses environs sont bien avancées. À terme, cette ville bénéficiera de 400 000 mètres cubes d'eau supplémentaires par jour. Par ailleurs, le gouvernement a engagé la remise à niveau des stations de production d'eau potable dans plusieurs villes secondaires, à l'instar de Tchang, Yabassi, Karoaboula, etc. Les efforts nécessaires continueront d'être faits pour réhabiliter et étendre les réseaux de distribution de cette précieuse ressource à l'intérieur de nos villes et villages, afin de la rendre plus accessible aux ménages. Des avancées considérables ont également été enregistrées dans le secteur de l'électricité, en vue de résorber le déficit énergétique de notre pays. Environ 44 000 panneaux solaires couvrant 40% des besoins d'électricité dans nos 3 régions septentrionales ont été installés. Le barrage de Naktigal, d'une capacité de 420 MW, sera mis en service dans quelques jours. L'usine des pieds du barrage hydroélectrique de Lompanga sera également opérationnelle en 2024. Elle permettra d'accroître l'offre énergétique dans la ville de Bertoua et ses environs. Plusieurs autres projets d'ouvrages hydroélectriques sont également envisagés ou en train d'être lancés. Il s'agit notamment des barrages de Kikot, de Mikouba, de Grand Téouin et de Béné à Warak. À terme, la capacité installée de tous ces ouvrages va assurer à notre pays l'autosuffisance en matière d'énergie électrique. Elle nous fera en plus accéder au statut envié de pays exportateurs d'électricité. Mes chers compatriotes, je sais à quel point les coupures récurrentes d'eau et d'électricité impactent votre quotidien et perturbent vos activités. J'ai pu vous assurer que le gouvernement ne ménage aucun effort pour améliorer la situation dans ces secteurs névralgiques. j'ai prescrit à mes services de veiller auprès des administrations concernées à la célérité tant des procédures administratives que de la recherche des financements y afférents. Les mêmes instructions ont été données s'agissant de la nécessaire amélioration de la situation de nos infrastructures routières. Cette problématique, vous devez le savoir, est au centre de mes préoccupations. Les défis en la matière sont nombreux. L'insuffisance des ressources financières en étant l'un des plus aigus. Il me plaît toutefois de constater que dans ce secteur également, nous progressons inexorablement. Je me réjouis ainsi de ce qu'au cours de l'année qui s'achève, plus de 700 km de routes ont été bitumées ou réhabilitées sur toute l'étendue du territoire national. De nombreux ouvrages d'art ont également été construits à cette occasion. Les travaux de construction de la boucle de la Lekié, ainsi que des routes Kumba et Kondotiti et Babajou Bamenda ont démarré et vont se poursuivre à un bon rythme. S'agissant de la route Ebolva-Kribi, les négociations avec les bailleurs de fonds qui ont longtemps achoppé sur les questions environnementales sont finalement en train d'aboutir. Toutes les dispositions nécessaires seront prises pour que la construction de cette route, tant attendue par les populations concernées, démarre effectivement en 2024. J'ai récemment donné des instructions en vue de la réhabilitation de la route Gaoundéré-Garoua. Les négociations se poursuivent également avec nos partenaires financiers en vue de l'achèvement des travaux de construction de la route Mora-Dabanga-Kousseri et de la réhabilitation des routes Edi-Akribi et Douala-Bafoussap. La réfection des voiries urbaines se poursuit dans les villes de Maroua et de Ngaoundéré. Le programme y afférent va s'étendre à d'autres capitales régionales. Les projets autoroutiers ne seront pas en reste au cours de l'année qui s'annonce, avec notamment le démarrage de la construction de la section urbaine de l'autoroute Yaoundé-Simalène et celui de la phase 2 de l'autoroute Yaoundé-Douala. En outre, face à la dégradation de la situation en la matière, j'ai prescrit au gouvernement de trouver en urgence une solution pérenne au problème du ramassage des ordures ménagères dans nos villes, en collaboration avec les communes et les communautés urbaines. Camerounaises, Camerounais, mes chers compatriotes, au cours des dernières semaines, vous avez été confrontés à une pénurie de produits pétroliers qui vous a causé de nombreux désagréments. Pour faire face à cette situation, j'ai prescrit au gouvernement des mesures urgentes permettant d'assurer l'approvisionnement continu du marché. Les difficultés du secteur sont toutefois plus larges et plus complexes. Vous devez savoir que dans le but de maintenir les prix à la pompe à leur niveau actuel, qui est largement inférieur à celui pratiqué dans les pays voisins, l'État doit, au prix d'importants efforts financiers, fortement subventionner les importations de produits pétroliers. Le poids de ces subventions pèse lourdement sur notre budget et rétrécit considérablement les ressources dont nous avons le plus grand besoin pour apporter des réponses aux autres problèmes auxquels nos populations sont confrontées. L'année dernière, le gouvernement a été amené à procéder à un léger relèvement des prix des carburants à la pompe. Grâce à cette mesure, la subvention des produits pétroliers, qui était de plus de 1000 milliards de francs CFA en 2022, a été réduite à environ 640 milliards de francs CFA en 2023. Cependant, cette subvention continue de peser significativement sur le trésor public. Nous n'aurons très certainement pas d'autre choix que de la réduire de nouveau. Nous verrons néanmoins à ce que les ajustements nécessaires n'impactent pas substantiellement le pouvoir d'achat des ménages. À terme, la réhabilitation de la Sonara, dont j'ai prescrit l'accélération, devrait contribuer à améliorer la situation dans le secteur. Mes chers compatriotes, il est loisible de constater que malgré la bonne volonté des pouvoirs publics, la mise en œuvre des différents projets devant permettre de répondre aux aspirations de nos populations se heurte à une contrainte majeure, celle de l'insuffisance des ressources financières nécessaires. C'est la raison pour laquelle je n'ai de cesse de prescrire au gouvernement la rationalisation des dépenses publiques, de même que la recherche des voies et moyens supplémentaires d'accroître les ressources publiques. S'agissant de la réduction des dépenses publiques, j'ai fermement réitéré au gouvernement mes instructions antérieures visant à réduire les dépenses de fonctionnement. La lutte contre la corruption et les détournements de deniers publics est très clairement un impératif pour la préservation des ressources publiques. Elle va connaître une intensification notable au cours de l'année qui s'annonce. Le plan triennal intégré d'import-substitution pour la période 2024-2026 que j'ai prescrit au gouvernement participe également de mon souci de permettre à notre pays d'économiser de précieuses ressources. Ce plan, en renforçant notre souveraineté alimentaire, devrait réduire l'impact négatif des importations sur notre balance commerciale. Le déficit y afférent est évalué à un peu plus de 1500 milliards de francs CFA par an. S'agissant de l'accroissement des ressources publiques, il est nécessaire d'explorer de nouvelles pistes face aux contraintes inhérentes à l'élargissement de l'assiette fiscale et à la baisse drastique des recettes pétrolières. La mine solide, en particulier l'or, nous semble constituer à cet égard une niche exceptionnelle de ressources financières. Notre pays dispose en effet d'importantes réserves minières non exploitées que nous devons valoriser. Je me réjouis du démarrage des projets miniers que j'ai annoncé l'année dernière concernant l'exploitation des gisements de fer de Kribi-Lobé, Pipidi Grand Zambi et Mbalam Nabeba. L'amélioration du climat des affaires est à l'évidence une condition essentielle à l'attraction des investissements étrangers, ainsi qu'à la création d'un secteur privé vigoureux, susceptible grâce à une création dynamique d'emplois et de richesses de faciliter notre accession à l'émergence. La confiance dans le système judiciaire participe inévitablement de la perception du climat des affaires. La justice est, comme vous le savez, l'un des piliers de l'état de droit. Il est donc impératif qu'elle agisse en toute impartialité et soit imperméable aux interférences de toute nature. Je voudrais vous assurer qu'en tant que garant de son indépendance, je continuerai à prendre toutes les mesures nécessaires à son bon fonctionnement. Mes chers compatriotes, permettez-moi à présent de dire quelques mots sur le secteur de l'éducation nationale. Malgré les efforts du gouvernement, la sérénité n'y est en effet pas complètement revenue. Pourtant, des efforts méritoires ont, de l'avis même des concernés, été consentis par le gouvernement à cet égard. En dehors des nombreuses mesures de divers ordres qui ont été prises par les administrations concernées, plus de 72 milliards de francs CFA ont été débloqués en 2023 pour prendre en charge les dépenses y afférentes. Une provision complémentaire de 102 milliards de francs CFA a également été constituée dans le budget de l'État au titre de l'exercice 2024 afin d'apurer les dépenses résiduelles. Il sera dès lors difficilement admissible que l'éducation de nos enfants continue d'être prise en otage par une frange d'enseignants dont les motivations réelles semblent s'écarter des objectifs affichés. Je voudrais être clair à cet égard. Autant je suis soucieux de voir les enseignants bénéficier des conditions appropriées pour l'exercice de leur noble métier, autant je suis intransigeant pour le respect du droit à l'éducation de notre jeunesse. Des mesures fermes vont à cet égard être prises pour veiller à ce que nos enfants ne se retrouvent pas victimes d'une éducation au rabais. Un dialogue constructif se poursuivra par ailleurs avec les syndicats reconnus pour progresser sereinement vers la prise en compte des aspirations et des préoccupations des enseignants. Mes chers compatriotes, au plan sécuritaire, de nombreux accidents de la route ont continué d'endeuiller nos familles et de priver notre pays de ressources humaines précieuses. Je voudrais le dire clairement, cela n'est pas acceptable. J'en appelle une fois de plus au sens des responsabilités des conducteurs et des propriétaires des agences de voyage. Toutes les mesures nécessaires doivent être prises pour assurer la sécurité des passagers et des autres usagers de la route. Le gouvernement, pour sa part, va renforcer ses efforts en ce qui concerne l'amélioration de l'état du réseau routier, mais aussi pour ce qui est de l'application vigoureuse des mesures nécessaires de prévention et de répression. Mes chers compatriotes, grâce à la collaboration active des populations avec nos forces de défense et de sécurité, la situation dans les régions du nord-ouest, du sud-ouest et de l'extrême nord s'est significativement améliorée. Elle permet désormais la mise en œuvre sereine des plans de reconstruction et de développement des dites régions. Les exactions criminelles des terroristes n'ont cependant pas totalement disparu. Les populations civiles en sont malheureusement les principales victimes. La ville de Bamfé a été le 6 novembre 2023, le théâtre du massacre barbare d'une vingtaine de civils en pleine nuit. Je condamne avec la dernière énergie de telles atrocités qui défient la raison et qu'aucune cause ne saurait justifier. J'encourage nos concitoyens des régions en proie au terrorisme à continuer de collaborer avec les forces de défense et de sécurité, dont je salue la bravoure et le professionnalisme. Je réitère à l'endroit des groupes armés mon appel à déposer les armes et à rejoindre les centres de désarmement, de démobilisation et de réintégration. Je note avec satisfaction qu'un nombre croissant de ces combattants a effectivement répondu à cet appel ces dernières semaines. Quant à ceux qui persistent dans la voie criminelle, qu'il s'agisse du terrorisme ou du grand banditisme, le sort qui les attend n'est pas enviable. Ils doivent savoir que notre volonté inébranlable d'assurer la sécurité de nos concitoyens ne faiblira pas. Camerounaises, Camerounais, mes chers compatriotes, dans quelques semaines, nos chers lions indomptables participeront à la 34e édition de la Coupe d'Afrique des Nations de football qui se déroulera en Côte d'Ivoire. Je voudrais, en votre nom à tous, leur prodiguer tous nos encouragements et leur demander de défendre, comme par le passé, le drapeau de leur pays avec bravoure et honneur. Je vous souhaite à toutes et à tous une bonne et heureuse année 2024. Vive la République, vive le Cameroun.
Fellow Cameroonians, my dear compatriots, over the past year which is drawing to an end, our country has been faced with numerous challenges. Some of them result from an increasingly difficult international context. Others are due to purely domestic issues, most of which are long-standing. I would like to start by assuring you that in spite of this difficult situation, we continued to cope together like the united and close-knit nation that we have always been, our eyes riveted on a single objective, the only one that matters, namely progress. As in the past, the said international context weighed heavily on our internal situation. The lingering war in Eastern Europe continued to disrupt the supply channels of the global consumer products market. Foodstuff and energy resource prices thus continued to rise as the conditions for accessing external financing tightened. The resurgence last October of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict worsened the rift within the international community, and it's now monopolizing its attention. As expected, such a situation adversely impacted our country. It led to a general price hike in consumer products and, consequently, the most and cost of living. It also resulted in various types of shortages, including a shortage of petroleum products. My dear compatriots, the difficulties that I have just mentioned in no way dampened my resolve to work for the well-being of our population, who, without any doubt, massively trusted and continue to trust me. Despite the unfavorable context, the government under my authority continued to in action with greater determination. The laudable efforts made following the COVID-19 pandemic to ensure economic recovery yielded appreciable outcomes. The resilience of our economy was confirmed. Proof of this is our growth rate continued to progress and was estimated at 3.9% in 2023, thanks notably to the performance of the non-oil sector. The consumption support measures implemented by government helped to contain and stabilize inflation at about 6.7%. The implementation of various projects was continued or launched to meet the aspirations of the people and improve their well-being. I would like to dwell for a moment on the most sensitive sectors. The project to supply drinking water to the city of Yaoundé and its environs from the river Senegal is virtually completed. Its imminent commissioning will help to substantially reduce the drinking water deficit in the city of Yaoundé. Studies on the project to supply drinking water to the city of Douala and its environs are well advanced. In the long run, the city will be supplied an admittable 400,000 cubic meters of water supply. Moreover, the government has embarked on upgrading drinking water production stations in several secondary towns like Chang, Yabasi, Garouabulai, etc. The requisite efforts will continue to be deployed to rehabilitate and extend the distribution networks of this precious resource in our towns and villages to make it more accessible to households. Major strides were also made in the electricity sector to reduce our country's energy deficit. About 44,000 solar panels have been installed in the 3 northern regions, covering 40% of electricity needs in the said regions. The 420 megawatt Nastigal Dam will be commissioned in the coming days. The Lompangar Dam 2 plant will also be operational in 2024. It will help to increase energy supply in the town of Betwa and its environs. Several other hydropower facility projects are also planned or being launched. These include the Kikot, Mikuma, Grand Ewen, and Bini Awarat dams. In the long term, the installed capacity of all these facilities will secure our country's electric energy self-sufficiency. Additionally, it will make us reach the enviable status of electricity explaining our country. My dear compatriots, I'm aware of the extent to which the frequent water and electricity cuts are impacting your daily life and disrupting your activities. I can assure you that the government is sparing no effort to improve the situation in these core sectors. I have instructed my office to ensure celerity in administrative procedures and in sourcing for related financing by the relevant ministries. The same instructions have been given with respect to the need to improve the situation of our road infrastructure. As you must be aware, this problem is at the core of my worries. The related challenges are multiple, the most acute of them being the inadequacy of financial resources. However, I am pleased to note that we are also making relentless progress in this sector. I am therefore satisfied that during the year ending, over 700 kilometers of roads were asphalted or rehabilitated nationwide. Several related highways engineering structures were also built in the process. Construction works on the Lekye Loop as well as the Kumba Ekondotiti and Babaju Bamenda roads are ongoing and will be continued at a satisfactory pace. Regarding the Ebolova-Kribi road, negotiations with donors, which for long were stalled by environmental issues, are finally being concluded. All the requisite measures will be taken to ensure that the construction of this road, so eagerly awaited by the population concerned, effectively starts in 2024. I recently issued instructions for the rehabilitation of the Ngaundere-Garwa road. Negotiations are also ongoing with our financial partners for the completion of the construction works on the Mora-Dabanga-Kuseri road and the rehabilitation of the Edeya-Kribi and Douala-Bafusam roads. The repair of urban road networks is continuing in towns of Marwa and Ngaundere. The related program will extend to other regions Motorway projects will not be left out during the coming year, with particularly the launching of the construction of the urban sector of the Yaoundé-Simaleng motorway and that of phase 2 of the Yaoundé-Douala motorway. Additionally, faced with the worsening situation, I have instructed the government to urgently find a lasting solution to the problem of household garbage collection in our cities, in collaboration with councils and city councils. Fellow Cameroonians, my dear compatriots, over the past 3 weeks, you were faced with a shortage of petroleum products, suffering many inconveniences as a result. To address this situation, I have instructed the government to take urgent measures to ensure constant supply of the market. However, the challenges in the sector are broader and more complex. You must be aware that to maintain pump prices of fuel at their current levels, which are far below those in neighboring countries, the state has to make huge financial sacrifices to subsidize petroleum product imports. The burden of these subsidies weighs heavily on our budget and significantly reduces the much-needed resources to address their problems facing our people. Last year, the government increased slightly the pump prices of fuel. As a result, the subsidy on petroleum products decreased from 1,000 billion CFA francs in 2022 to around 640 billion CFA francs in 2023. However, this subsidy continues to weigh heavily on public coffers. Though we will most certainly have no choice but to reduce it further, we will ensure that the requisite adjustments do not significantly impact the purchasing power of households. Ultimately, the rehabilitation of Sonara, which must be expected as I have instructed, should help to improve the situation in this sector. My dear compatriots, despite the government's goodwill, it is clear that the implementation of various projects to meet our people's aspirations faces a major impediment, namely inadequacy of the required financial resources. This is why I have repeatedly ordered the government to streamline public spending and find new ways and means of boosting public resources. Regarding the reduction of public spending, I have strongly reiterated my previous instructions to the government to reduce recurrent expenditure. Actions implemented to combat corruption and misappropriation of public funds are essential for protecting public resources. They will be intensified in the coming year. The 3-year integrated import substitution plan of 2024 to 2026, which I have instructed the government to implement, is also part of my effort to enable our country to save on these precious resources. This plan should help to reduce the negative impact of imports on our trade balance by strengthening our foreign sovereignty. Its deficit is estimated at just over 1,500 billion CFA francs per year. To increase such resources, there is a need to explore new avenues given the constraints of broadening the tax base and the slump in oil revenue. In this regard, solid minerals, especially gold, appear to be an excellent niche for financial resources. Our country is richly endowed with minerals, resources, and need to be exploited. I am delighted that the mining project I announced last year for the development of the Kribi Lobe, Bipindi, Grand Zambi, and Mbalam Nabeba iron ore deposits have been launched. Improving the business climate is clearly a prerequisite for attracting foreign investment and creating a robust private sector that should facilitate our transition to emergence through dynamic job and wealth creation. Trust in the judicial system is inevitable for perception of the business climate. As you are aware, the judiciary is one of the pillars of the rule of law. Therefore, it is imperative that it should act with complete impartiality and should be impervious to any interference. I would like to assure you that as guarantor of the independence, I will continue to take drastic measures against that. My dear compatriots, allow me to say a few words about the national education sector. Despite the government's effort, calm has been fully restored therein. Yet, according to stakeholders, the government has made commendable efforts in this regard. In addition to the various types of measures taken by the relevant ministries, more than 72 billion CFA francs was disbursed in 2023 to cover related expenses. An additional amount of 102 billion CFA francs has also been provided in the state budget for the 2024 financial year to cover residual expenditure. Therefore, it will be difficult for us to accept that a handful of teachers who seemed to have ulterior motives should continue to hold our children's education hostage. Let me be clear on this issue. As much as I am committed to ensuring that teachers practice their noble profession under appropriate conditions, I am equally uncompromising about respect for the right of our young people to education. Strong measures will be taken to ensure that our children do not fall victim to substantial education. Constructive dialogue will also be pursued with the recognized trade unions to address the aspirations and concerns of teachers in a peaceful manner. My dear compatriots, regarding safety, numerous road accidents continue to plunge families into mourning and rob the country of precious human resources. I want to make it clear that this is unacceptable. Once again, I appeal to the sense of responsibility of drivers and bus service operators. All necessary measures must be taken to ensure the safety of passengers and other road users. The government, for its part, will not only step up efforts to improve the state of the road network, but will also rigorously apply the necessary preventive and repressive measures. My dear compatriots, thanks to the people's active cooperation with our defense and security forces, the situation in the northwest, southwest, and far north regions has improved significantly. It is now possible to calmly implement the reconstruction and development plans for the said regions. However, atrocities committed by terrorists have not completely disappeared. Unfortunately, civilians are the main victims. On the 6th of November 2023, the town of Manfi was the scene of a barbaric massacre of some 20 civilians in the middle of the night. I strongly condemn such atrocities which defy reason and have no justification whatsoever. I encourage our fellow citizens in the regions affected by terrorism to continue to cooperate with the defense and security forces, whose courage and professionalism I salute. I reiterate my appeal to armed groups to lay down their arms and join disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration centers. I am pleased to note that an increasing number of these combatants have responded to this call in recent weeks. For those who persist in criminal activity, be it terrorism or organized crime, the fate that awaits them is not enviable. They must know that our firm determination to ensure the security of our fellow citizens will never falter. Fellow Cameroonians, my dear compatriots, in a few weeks, our beloved indomitable Lions will participate in the 34th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations in Côte d'Ivoire. On behalf of you all, I would like to encourage and urge them to defend our country's flag with courage and honor as they have in the past. I wish you all a happy new year 2024. Long live the Republic. Long live Cameroon.
Vive la République. Vive le Cameroun.
Welcome back, and the most anticipated moment has come and it's gone. It has faded away. I mean, where we have heard from the president of the nation, President Paul Biya, in his State of the Nation address, enumerates quite a handful of beautiful things and likewise giving a review of how 2023 has been. And for those of you who sent in your anticipation, I hope that scores of what you were anticipating was actually highlighted in the president's speech. I think it's now time for me to give the baton of command, the speech, to the members that I have on the table of honor, my panelists, so that they can give a review of what the president said, if he actually gave a repeat of what he said last year, 2022, 2023, and if some of them were met, and if it's going to die at birth or it's going to be abortive as some of it were. I'm going to begin with Mr. Sama Abang, who is a socio-political analyst here today. Mr. Sama, the president, throughout the time he was talking, I saw you with a pen and a paper nodding to some and expressing some sense of disgust to some. How did you perceive the president's speech?
With mixed feelings and mixed reactions. A blend of deception, we know optimism, blend of deception and laced with a deja vu mindset, a deja vu reaction. Deception because of the tone, deception because of the repetitions of unfulfilled promises of last year and the years beyond, deception because I heard him enumerate as ongoing projects that have long been abandoned or have not been initiated. I would cite you the case of the Kumbai-Kondo Titi Road, which he said clearly is ongoing. And we know that apart from the last grading that was done by the military engineering sector late last year, there is no construction work along Kumbai-Kondo Titi Road. I heard him say so lavishly how the water crisis in Douala and Yaoundé and other major towns is fast being resolved. We know that a majority of households in the major towns and cities of this country depend on bottled water, expensive bottled water, and boreholes, which are private initiatives. The promises and the fanfare that greeted the project for the water provision in Yaoundé, because the project for the draining of water from River Sanaga to Yaoundé town to resolve the water shortage in Yaoundé has been on for more than 10 years. And I'm surprised he is still hitting hard on that and how it is an achievement and an ongoing process. I heard him in a very threatening tone to teachers, associations and trade unions, making threats. I know those threats were directed to OTS and OTR, teachers trade movements, which have registered, which have been able to hold government by its balls recently with successes that they have recorded. And I want to think that the writers of that speech, because he didn't write, I don't even know if he was aware of the issues that were raised by OTS, would certainly have had the intention to think that they can shout down teachers trade union into submission. I think they should bear in mind that they are in for a more serious ride if the 170 billion that he cited as having been previewed in the budget of 2024 to solve the immediate problems that were raised by those teachers movement. If the teachers do not see the palpable results on the table, I want to assure the head of state that the ugly head of OTS would remain visible. I also heard him talk about he mentioned the crisis in the Northwest and the Southwest and in the far North. True. Kudos to military and security forces and the newfound romance between them and local population who have been collaborating, and there is some relative peace in some parts, in some portions of the Northwest and the Southwest, thanks to that collaborative effort and the actions of military. But again, I also felt bad that on a day that was set aside to commemorate his ascension to power, over 20 persons were killed in Manfi, and we didn't hear the head of state come out when the pain was still high, when the pain was still rife in the hearts of the people of Manu Division. It is 2 months after that he's coming to talk about it. I feel that as selling after the market and a failure on his part. I want to think that the speech is riddled with repetitions, and that is why I said my reaction is laced with deception, because it's repetitions that have never been fulfilled. I heard him enumerate new dam projects that have been initiated to ameliorate the electricity power deficit that we have in the country. We have never had a project analysis report, as Kikishi would say, that after the project conception, there is the planning, there is implementation, and then you come back now to do the control and do evaluation to see how well it has been implemented. We have never seen an evaluation of the Balam Dam, the Memvele Dam, and the other dams, which we thought were projects that would have made electricity cuts in this country something of the past. He's making fanciful, lousily fanciful projects and promises of some other dams that will be constructed again, when we haven't had the success in that and the achievements of the unfinished dam projects that are still going on. I think it's still just another play to the gallery. If you allowed me, I could take my breath for now, but again, as I said, it is still just an act of play to the gallery with little or nothing to show on the table as palpable solutions.
Thank you so much. Talking about the palpable solution, I think we have a brain amidst the gallery here who is going to be spitting and spewing some degree of intelligence and bringing down, flaming tempers, if at all there is any, on my desk today. Mr. Kikishi Kenneth has been around the house for about 5 years and counting, and today he's here to give matters this thing. You're welcome, Mr. Kikishi Kenneth. I know that your voice is going to matter most today on the program. We have heard the father of the nation speak to us, and as citizens, he's addressed some of our worries, and he's given a review in 27 minutes what he has done and what the government intends to do. Do you think the songs as something that act as a consolidating factor for what we should hope for, or for things we should hope for?
Good evening, Mabel, and to my fellow panelists, I say good evening and Happy New Year. The introductory part of the president's speech here was a negative one. Regrets of non-achievement, blame game on the international situation, either the Ukraine war, and as he ride on, you would have heard him talking about Israel, and so it did not give room for me and other Cameroonians to hope. I think as a president of the nation, or those who are specialists in speech writing, the first introductory paragraph of a president's speech at the end of the year should bring hope, should usher in hope. People should see in it hope. But I was so disappointed that I started with the regrets of.
But do you think
failures.
that it's a prophecy for anything, whether it starts in hope or it starts in despair or anything?
Once it starts in, with disappointments of what the failures, then a lot of the televisions may have quitted the stage. Those who are watching you, when you start and you don't usher in hope, some people will just leave because they don't. Now the second thing is that it is a very theoretical speech as usual, a speech that is it comes in as if the president is not really part of the system. I have highlighted severally because we listen to other heads of state speak to that, and you have the feeling that they are part of the people. You feel the president that is part of the people. When the president who talks about a Manfred incident, even when he will call a certain name, that's like this little girl or this pregnant woman that was here and call a name, you show to the population that you are part and parcel of their daily lives. Our president is so far from the population that everything that he says is as if he is a literature novel that is carved out and he reads out. He gives instruction. I've instructed the government. I've instructed. I could echo it 5 or 6 times. Instruction. Now, failed projects or projects that are ongoing, that is the routine, traditional regalia of the president's speech. I think that we want to see the president who is telling the population that I will be with you, I will move on with you, I'm going to monitor. Instead, from instructions, we would have thought that the president would be saying that, okay, because of corruption, I have decided that, and from hence, these are the measures that I will take to see that corruption is curbed. I will be on the field. I will visit the so-and-so program. I will come into the north, far north. I will visit Mosul, northwest and southwest, to see into it how we can address issues. He talked of social cohesion, social dialogue, and we know that we clamor for peace. It's not like we are saying that we don't want peace. There's nobody who would want a situation where the environment is not there for people to do businesses. He talked of attracting investors, and he talked of the judiciary. He talked of corrupt practices. But those corrupt practices are there on a daily basis and are perpetrated by the same people that he put in power. And I think that far from just reading out that we are going to, it has been 40 years or 40-something years that the head of state is talking about corruption. Remember that he came into power and talked of a new deal, rigor and moralization, and so it is not. I will not sit here to be happy to hear the president talking about fighting corruption at 40-something years of power, because when he came to power, he talked about rigor and moralization, which is a bigger picture of handling those crises like corruption, embezzlement of state funds. Those are corruption are subset of rigor and moralization. If we have a moral society, so when the president is talking about all these issues that are still there, what we have the feeling that he has actually marked himself as a failure. He has given his marks, showing that he has failed in all these things. Now, what is the redress mechanism? If the president is talking about instruction, how systematic is his instruction over a constitutional reforms? How do you fit in when the president says, I have given instructions that this should be done? That same president that you will not see in the field, we see other presidents visiting chantiers. In other countries, we see president moving to look at white chantiers and say, okay, this is not moving. What is going to move? Oh, congratulations! I'm happy that the Baminda Babaju route is moving well. You see the president visit the site. We don't have a president who is present. So everything that he sits and say there, I, for one, Kenneth, I still think that is far from giving a solution that Cameroonians are expecting. But one of the most interesting things that he talked about was that the right to education. talk about the right to education, and I was happy that he's talking about the right to education, meaning that at least the youths are, carved in somewhere. Because when I look at the speech, I was like, where is the portion of the youth? He also said that we are a very resourceful country, embedded in natural resources, dime, wool, and all the what cited. But we know of a certain company that came in and started exploration, and we did not have feedback. They just disappeared in thin air, whereas taxpayers' monies was billions were spent. So we need feedback on those who are in the various sectors, resource exploitation, like minerals. We should be given a track record. Government should not just be taken apart. We hear Glencoe scandal, we hear of this scandal, he talked of revamping Sonara. For the past years, we know that since the incident in Sonara, Sonara has not been actually refining oil again, that we have oil that we import and just depot it and then maybe check the chemical specification and then dish out the population. And so Cameroonians are even expecting that for livelihood to develop and span out for the economic group of the country, we should liberalize the oil sector so that more importers will bring oil at a cheaper rate, and it will also lessen the expenses that the life expenditures on daily basis. We spend a lot of money, whereas we have simple solutions that can address. I heard Mr. Sama talking about 1,000 solutions, not $1 million question. That there are simple solutions that can come with simply 1,000, not $1 million question. I am also thinking that there's a greater portion of the head of speech which is not even supposed to be addressed by the head of state. The ministers, as ministers that are supposed to be accountable, when they go to assembly, they define, the head of state will just come and fine-tune and actually give us a systematic analysis of what he is holding. Not that he will come and be counting things that the Minister of Mines can count us that, okay, this is a clear picture of the mining sector, this is a clear picture of the health sector, this is a clear picture. Those are things that the head of state should make himself very closer to the people, like to get a direct feeling, so that when you hear the head of state speaking, you know that he is reading a paper that has been written for you to read. But when you watch other heads of state speak to the people, you actually have the feeling. Like I visited Ngaoundéré, or when I went to this, or when I met with the minister of this and asked him this is how it, and I think that okay, the challenge that this minister was posing, either with respect to mining, this is how we should address it. You feel that he actually is
Thank you so much,
in
Mr.
contact
Kishi.
with collaborators and the people.
Yeah, that is a very interesting note, and I think in line with what you've said, you mentioned Sonara, Mr. Antifa Richard, the president saluting us on the 31st of December at exactly 8:30. I mean, talking about the rehabilitation of Sonara. Do you think this is a breath of fresh air to Cameroonians?
Well, like my brother Sama said, or somebody mentioned here, that the speech was a deja vu. What the president presented today was the regular, talked about the challenges of the previous years, superficially mentioned some of the things that the government has done to overcome those challenges, briefly talk about the plans for next year and how the government intends to solve those problems. But what is lacking is details, and that is where the devil is. The devil is in the details. He spoke the usual political rhetorics. No data, no concrete plan, no timeline, nothing. Superficial. Okay, so leaving Cameroonians with no concrete view as to what he plans to do.
So permit me ask, so just by mentioning that Sonora will be rehabilitated, don't you think this is...
How? Rehabilitated? How? We expect the president to tell us that there is plan to rehabilitate Sonora, we plan to do this, we plan to do that, we plan to do this, by this time, by this time. That's what I call superficial rhetorics. Just think, those are political rhetorics that you just talk around to play with the feelings of Cameroonians. There is, look at the issue of water supply and electricity. That is a serious problem. I wanted to touch on this when my friend Cyril mentioned it. It's a serious problem, even right here in Boya. We have neighborhoods in Boya who have supply of water once in a week. Once. And when I say once in a week, it is not like 24 hours in 1 week. It is like 3 hours or even 2 hours sometimes. Sometimes it comes in the middle of the night when people are sleeping, and by the time they get up in the morning, they cannot find water. And you hear the president just mention it in a kind of passive manner, evasive manner. Oh, I understand that Cameroonians do not have, they have the problem of persistent shortage of water and supply. We understand that. Without telling us, oh no, I'm sorry, River Senegal. Well, he needs to tell us concretely what is it that he is doing to address, what plans is there on the ground to address this, so that that Mami who is there in Munya who cannot have drinking water should know that if I'm going to bed tonight, I am assured that the president has told me that this is the step he's going to take, this is what he's going to do to ensure that we start having constant flow of water. I know people will tell me that that is not the job of the president to do, but like he said in his speech, he spends time talking about the fact that I have instructed. We live in a country of instructions. I have instructed. You instruct even people who are supposed to be responsible for garbage disposal. It requires the head of state to come and instruct so that garbage be... Are we serious in this country?
Do you think that he's putting a right foot in front when he mentioned that the water supply from River Senegal to Yaoundé has been concretized? Do you think this is a wave of fresh air to Cameroonians?
It is just what I've been saying, Mabel. Those things are rhetorics. That is, those are statements to console Cameroonians. In fact, they lack. When you want to get convinced, is when a concrete plan is put in place, when there is a clear evidence that between this time and this time, we are going to address this situation, and we are going to address it by doing A, by doing B, by doing C. That assures you that there is the will for that problem to be solved. But when somebody just comes and tells you, I understand that there is, and I have given instructions to this person to ensure that water is constantly...
What he said about Douala, that he's instructed that 4,000 cubic meters of the water supply be given in Douala. Mr. Cyril, in line with what Mr. Richard here is saying, do you think these are momentous efforts by Yaoundé in making sure that the people who have been decrying this dilapidating conditions, come to terms with the fact that hope is on the way?
Thank you, Mabel. Mr. Biya has now entered his 5th year out of the 7 that the people of Cameroon, through the conspiracy of the Constitutional Council, gave him in 2018. We are somehow responsible for the kind of the president we have. So it is not in the platform like this one that we should be behaving as if we are getting to know him, but today, a man of his age is already making a lot of efforts to stand in front of Cameroonian and offer a speech. You will not compare him with Macron in France, or even the newly coup president in Gabon, Olengi Nguema. So we should first of all accept the format that Biya has, his age, his distance from state affairs, because when you see the Secretary General of the Presidency, giving award, Ferdinand Gongo, giving award to to AFCON task force and what we call COVID gate actors, you realize that in a country that is governed, things cannot go that way. Where you have a check and balance house that have said that, hey, there is a problem in the management of this particular activity, but before you know, a higher state personality comes out and is dishing out awards. So the country is not governed. We have observed that. But observing Mr. Bia's speech tonight, I must say that first, the length. I'm still looking at the structure, the format that he offered this year. The length was relatively shorter to that of last year. If you go by all what he dished out last year and the time it took, and the time he has taken this year, you see that the length is reduced.
So how does this matter?
It matters that it saves time and goes straight to relevant things. Secondly, he has actually pinpointed some few aspects, even though he hasn't really said what is, he has not given a magic solution that's going to happen, for example, saying that he's going to put an end to the Anglophone crisis. No, but he has used the effort of the reports that they want to keep luring the international community of a peace process that is on, which you and I, except you want to dissociate yourself from me today, know that there is nothing on the ground. And again, he has touched on few issues like the teachers' strike. We have had Mr. Bia in this country having situation and he never talk about it. So even coming to talk about teachers' strike, what they call OTS, even just mentioning it and saying that some budget were allocated for it, for me, I see that like a plus as compared to last year, that there were issues on the ground and he totally ignored the Anglophone crisis. For example, last year we had a number of occurrences that he never mentioned. He just silent it. So this year
time around he
has made a choice to vote. So those are things that we should be able to.
But do you think that looking up
to appreciate
on the flip side of things, he mentioned Magvi 2 months after the gory incident had happened. Do you still think that there is a space for criticism, a leeway for criticism?
If you can't appreciate the fact that he even remembered that happened. I started my introductory statement by telling you that when you look at the age of the person who is talking, he's distant from state activity, and the responsibilities of Cameroonians who vote him into office. Mabel, should I remind you that those who are fighting me on daily basis when I'm highlighting the shortcoming of this regime, it's not Mr. Bia. They are my fellow colleague on this platform. So I cannot allow them to dare start questioning the kind of president they have. No. They have to assume their responsibility. This is the moment. So we have a prime minister, because I also heard one of the colleagues said about that some of the things he said are instead the responsibility of other state officials to have said it before, but we have a prime minister who has been reduced to a ceremonial officer. He only go and inaugurate secondary school in the far north, or you see him inaugurating small center. Why things are happening in front of him, but he does not have a power. He does not have a mantle. We have femicide. How do I say it? Feminism. That is women.
Feminism.
Yeah, women are more and more attacked in household. Okay. That's a social ill that we have recorded so much in 2023. At least for the cry of the women, we wanted to hear something like that. But it seems as if those who cook up that write-up never really saw that they should put it in, because they read at least.
Okay, so if you're saying that women, would have found a portion of the speech, maybe those disabled too. I mean, the president. Do you think the president?
No, the social aspect of his speech was totally silent, and that human touch at a point where Cameroonians are facing so many things at a time. Food prices in the market has risen. Social amenity, water, electricity, internet is completely given with a spoon. Education,
when you go to classroom, parents are complaining that the money that they are paying for school fees and other school essential materials, in essence to what is being taught to their children, is not up to standards. It doesn't match. So all those gaps in implementation.
Let's find a meeting point.
Mr. Bia somehow is not able to measure that up, and that is where I'm inviting Cameroonian, because I might not have a chance to come up again. I'm inviting Cameroonian to actually just take note. They are facilitating way for us to come into office. Just as I heard people talking about poor waste management in town, don't bother. We are few weeks into 2020. I mean, few hours into 2024. Electoral is open every 1st of January and closes on the 31st of August. Please, to be a relevant citizen, to move from population to a citizen, you at least need your voter's cards, and that is my call. I just wanted to make you know that you have the immense power in your hand to have the kind of president you want. It is not mere talk. People have been able to do it in other democracies. Liberia, for example. We saw Weah given up to a man of 71. It's possible in Cameroon. We just have to come in common accord on what matter and stop fighting on social media, on WhatsApp. For few people who are just having their little tips, no, this country, we must liberate our energy so that those who have talent should manage those who don't have, and all of us, we should move towards light.
Let's talk about the city councils. A lot of relevance has been given to them in the state of the nation address this evening. The head of state is calling on the city councils to take charge of their municipalities, of their towns, of their environment, especially when it has to do with garbage control. And this comes, within the instruction of the head of state. Do you think this is, a little bit way out of place, that something as petty as garbage management should be under the instruction of the head of state, Mr. Kikishi?
Well, I'm not surprised that there's an instruction from the head of state on garbage management, because Yaoundé, which is the capital of Cameroon, has become a very dirty city, and there are some junctions now that are properly referred to as Carrefour Poubelle or trash junction. It means that the alarming rate of death, you saw the Prime Minister came out and hit hard about the nature of the town, of our city, especially Yaoundé and Douala, when it comes to waste management. However, you see, when I'm talking about systematic actions to redress situations that have gone out of hand, I am thinking that hitting the table with an instruction, the head of state would have equally told Cameroonians that this group of persons that have mismanaged or that are not acting based on the ethics of their profession, that those administrators that have not assigned the funds that are normally supposed to be channeled to city mayors and councils to handle waste management will be punished. We have had a situation where a government has sat for several years, no new appointments. There are even some vacancies in ministerial positions that have not been, no replacements, as if the Cameroonians are finished. The only ones that we have are those that are there who master the system, and so should be there. I think that if the head of state is meting out instructions, it means that there are things that are wrong. And so he should be able to tell Cameroonians directly that those who have sat either on the road of justice, those who are in the judiciary, who, make access to justice a community for sale, coming back to the cities, I think that the head of state has said it, that in the days ahead, this is how he expect them to work. But remember that there's a Ministry of Decentralization that has a roadmap for all councils. Remember that there is a council partner who is FIECOM, the council financier, who has to, put available funds for councils to be able to clean trash. Each time that we talk about a dirty town, it means that the resources have not been made available for them to carry trash. And there's another one thing about our cities. Apparently, there's a kind of Cold War conflict between the FECOM and local councils, because FECOM has imposed Izakam as the only garbage cleaning waste management company for all councils in Cameroon. That can be a very political decision, because some councils have the capacity to handle waste management without necessarily passing in a better way than Izakam. Let me call the name without Izakam. But this time around, the FECOM says that no, all councils must work only with FECOM. There are local solutions that can be provided by a council with real, even using tricycles that enter the quarter and, create more jobs in the council, and the council create it, and even call for, community policing in waste management, where the community would also be part and parcel. Now that the community thinks that government, the taxpayer money has hired a company to take care of cleaning the town, but some people will just throw the trash in the public place, because they say, Izakam is there to clean. Yeah, whereas the responsibility, if it is shifted to the council will also use its population, talk with the population and work with the population for an efficient clean-up system and management of waste.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kikishi. Without over-whipping the sanitation part of it, the president, head of state, actually pinpointed and appreciated, lauded the efforts of military, especially with Army Nation Line and People's Action Corporation, which has to do with the populace involvement to security, working fingernail with security officials. To talk on this, we have a political commentator who is Pope Bertrand, a civil engineer and also a political analyst. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mirabel. It's good to be here again. You see, when I took special interest in the president's speech tonight, the plan has already been laid. We are moving towards emergence. And if you listen to what the president was talking about, it was only to that direction. Yes, other panelists may argue it that he has outlined some of these activities before, but the follow-up is poor. You see, when we come back to look at, he mentioned public spending, and one of the things that struck me most was he talked about the international crisis that is affecting African countries as a whole. I don't think that should really affect us as Cameroonians.
Why not? The importation of goods.
Why? Because we are blessed, they call us African in miniature. If we go back to our farming, CDC crop many years ago, the government is not doing anything to that. He talked about farm roads to market. You cannot be talking about farms and you are not talking about the biggest farm in the country. You are not talking about the biggest farm, which is CDC. How to revive it, bring it back. Sonara got built in 2019. He's echoing that today to us. We're supposed to be hearing that due to the scarcity of fuel around Cameroon and other major cities, Sonara has 3 days, 4 days to start producing fuel to cut down. So when he comes out and say that he has given instruction, this thing may come, I have given instruction. To who? What are the duties discharged on them? These are the things that we're supposed to be having. Okay, he talked about, and at this point, I want to tell you that maybe we don't need politicians. The presidential goal agenda needs entrepreneurs, engineers to tailor it up.
Those who can walk the talk.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk
because
about...
Let me count 1 minute, please. Let's because when you look at the Senegal water dam, 700 kilometers of road, those are not achievements we should be aligning now after 40 years of execution. Those are the least. Those are the least things that President Pope should come up and beat his chest of. Because Cameroon should not be talking about roads. Cameroon should not be talking about water.
Time. We have about 40 minutes to end the program.
Okay.
Can we talk on the president calling road users to order? Do you think this is something that you had anticipated to be, to actually occupy a portion of a speech, calling pedestrians and those who ply the road, whether with buses or private cars, to be meticulous in their dealings.
Yes, but that starts with the plan. How are our roads? Do we have pedestrian path on our roads? The way the project has been designed, the project that has been designed, we don't execute it as it is on plan. For example, we have roads that were mapped out to be 6 meters. We end up realizing them at 5 meters. So it narrows the way, and it narrows the way first, which turn out to be accident and cost on the society, human lost. Secondly, how is the structure?
Can you take a quick pause there? To which is the high rate or the upsurge of accidents should be blamed? Is it road dilapidation of roads, the users, or what? Or the bad cars that ply this Cameroonian?
It starts with a notion first of the driver.
Okay.
How qualified are they? That's the first. Second, the roads.
Okay.
The span, the length, the width wise of the road, because roads are supposed, the pedestrian is supposed to have his own portion of the road that must not be violated. So when you make a road at the pedestrian path, the pedestrian now is forcing his way with the path that was aligned for vehicles. So that is where it starts, which must dig the root cause. Secondly, we have roads. When he talks about roads, city of Yaoundé, we have a lot of roads that do not have repairs. I don't want to start calling roads. I will not stop now. So there's a mechanism that is not doing its work. And I want to end it by also saying that even a reporter, the head boy, is also failing to check, to follow up. There's a failure in follow-up.
What do you mean?
The head boy, the prime minister, and the ministers. The head boy, the minister of public works, end up giving reports to the prime minister. The prime minister end up reporting to the president. This connectivity is not amongst them.
It's a synergy, true.
Yes. So that's where we have a problem.
Mr. Nkechi, you're somebody who plies the roads. I mean, while we talk theoretically, can we just talk practical a little? The president, because of the numerous road accidents, and it's becoming very hazardous, what can you say, adding your voice, like somebody who is not just a road user, but somebody who plies the road very often?
Yeah, I want to say that I was happy that he touched the insecurity on our roads that is causing a lot of families losing their loved ones. Because I'm sure that even the Anglophone crisis or the Boko Haram crisis do not cost us so much loss in lives. But I want to take it to another angle. Let us take the stretch from Boya, my 17, to Douala. When you look at the number of controls, gendarmerie, police, and military controls, now we have, and before adding even sometimes road prevention, what is the psychological state of a driver who leaves Boya for Douala? What is the psychological state of a driver who leaves Douala for Yaoundé? With so many controls on the way, so much harassment from people who are supposed to educate and protect passengers. I mean, the military or the police or the gendarmerie, it gives the time waste in these several controls. Sometimes I ask those of this group that are they aware of Cameroon Vision 2035? The time that they impound a vehicle simply to get 1,000 francs or 500 francs and leave the driver now driving in distress is one of the biggest factors that contributes to road accidents. Because if you are even talking about the fact that some roads are poorly made, if you observe very well, you realize that most of the accidents even occur on portions of the road that are not even bad, they say. But the reason is that there's a psychological impact of several controls and the mode of operations of these forces that are controlling our roads. They don't care about the state of mind of the driver. Bertrand has always talked about even how regular are these drivers, how professional are they, because driver's license now are gotten just with a phone call or whatever. We don't want to, we know that that's what happened. The state of the vehicle, because these people who are supposed to check the state of the vehicle, once a driver has passed in the morning and settled his control, he can take as many passengers, and they don't care about the number of passengers. 2 weeks ago, I was in Manfi, and paid from my 12,000 francs per person to go to Manfi. The reason is that on that very stretch of the road, there are several controls, and drivers have to pay money to pass. No matter whatever justification you have as a driver, you will not pass without paying money. If you don't pay, they will look for another justification to implicate you, and then you will stand there for long. So for drivers to buy their way and pass. So these people are not focused on the state of the vehicle, on the quality, the drivers, they are rather focused on what they get from the drivers. So this is what the head of state, if he is close to the people or the minister that is in charge, they should be talking about reducing the number of controls on our highway. It has a very big effect on the driver's state of mind, and so some of the accidents are caused by the mindset of the driver, caused by those who harass them on the road.
Dr. Busi, talking about harassment, I think we have overflogged the point of harassment, and Mr. Siri was talking about the president not highlighting in the speech women and their cry, and I was asking him if even the disabled were to be highlighted, but I think the separatists or ex-combatants were not left out. The head of state made mention of integration centers. Do we think this is a cure, or it comes to salvage a lot of things?
Yeah, what Siri was saying was about the minority group. And this is not the first time. President Pobia has always spoken about the minority group. And when you look at issues that concern the minority group, I will tell you that even people with disabilities, some of them are now working with the government, madam. I know of many of them, even persons with visual impaired, they are working with the government. So I think that integration is there. He was talking about violence among women at home and so on. I think that those are little things that we can curb them at the level of the community. The government can never do everything. President Pobia cannot do everything. That's the truth. And I want to reiterate something, as you said, concerning the issue of road accidents here. But we were looking at it from a mechanical point of view and also from bad roads. But I want to say that there are many factors. If you look mechanical point of view, some of the drivers, even before leaving, they don't check their cars. They don't check their cars before leaving. And sometimes they have so many failures on the way, and overloading and so on. And psychologically, you enter a car that's supposed to take about 5 persons, sometimes it carries 7, 8 persons. It's not correct. And the driver sits with another person again, so it's not correct. We have to be responsible too. If we have to build Cameroon, it's not President Pobia alone. Sometimes we blame the government all the time, but us citizens, we have to be responsible. Sometimes you, a driver, psychologically, you are stressed, you are tired, you drive from Bamenda to Boya, you take again, back again. You need to rest. You need to rest. Your mental health has to be positive, tiredness too, and sometimes too, some get drunk and so on and so forth. So I want to say that we should take note of that. His Excellency President Pobia talk about education, because education is the powerhouse of every country. But I want to say that you can never undermine teachers. Teachers are very, very noble personalities, as he said. But I want to say that if you see the teachers who have been striking, they have the right to strike, Mr. President. If you look at it from a greater perspective, because you are talking about education for all. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goal 4, it's talking about education for all, and it's talking about education for all. Children have the right for education. We know about that. And quality education. But you cannot be talking about quality education also when you pamper the children, because I saw the president pampering the children a lot and putting blames to an extent to the teachers. But I want to say that teachers have their right, because if you don't give teachers their payment, their pay packages, incentive, motivation is very important in this field. So we have to take this career very, very important. The teaching career, the teaching core is a very, very important call. So I think that the head of state, I think that he was pampering our students, because if you look at our children today, they have the right to go to school. Teachers have the right to go to the class, but you have the right to pay the teachers too to go to the class, because somebody will not go to primary school, secondary school, go to economy, and then you have to teach about 5 years no salary, you teach for 4 years no salary, you need to pay house rent. And for example, if you are a new teacher here in Buea, house rent, you need to pay an apartment for your family 80,000, 90,000 francs. How do you cope for 5 years? I think that the head of state should know that teachers need motivation. It's very important. You cannot talk about quality education when you don't motivate teachers to teach qualitatively. And we are talking about education for all. When we need equipment, we need a kind of digital learning, we need all the facilities, the equipment we don't have in our amphitheaters, we don't have in our classroom. You go to the north, children are still learning under the trees. You go to some places, they are learning under the trees. They don't have desks, they don't have didactic materials, and we are talking about 21st century education with challenges and so on, and imagination. So I think that we need to overlook that. I want to say, looking at an overview of what the head of state said, I want to say there are a lot of lapses, because if you look at the speech, we needed a speech of humanity, a speech that would touch the heart of Cameroonians, because the speech was barely economic, futuristic. And we cannot be talking about futuristic without looking at what we can, because a speech should go in terms of smart. How specific was the speech? How measurable was the speech? How attainable will be the speech? And so on, the time bound. So I think that when you look at the speech, we are talking about electricity failure every day here in Buea. I live in Bundumabe. I will tell you that every day there's a part in Bunduma that for a week they will not have light. And what about the business people there? What about families there? That things get bad and so on. You cannot do a business that goes with electricity. In 2024 that will be ending. Cameroon should not be living in a country where we still have electricity failure. And I want to say that we are talking about pipe-borne water and so on. You look at it, Cameroonians now, they are using boreholes, not even pipe-borne waters. And some of the water in is not purified. And many people are having a lot of typhoid every day, a lot of diseases every day. You look at Buea, let's contextualize it in terms of Buea. He talks about hygienic condition. And I want to say that Hizakam can never do it alone. We used to live a community life where people come out and clean their cities. Where is our community life? We need to go. Sometimes when we sit here, we blame the head of state alone. I think that he cannot do it alone. I think that we have to do it. Yes, exactly. We have to do it collectively. Go to Rwanda, you cannot enter a taxi and you are eating something just through anyhow. But I'll tell you that in Kigali you cannot do that. In Cameroon, you see people eating and you enter a taxi, you see gum in a taxi, and you see dirt litter everywhere in a taxi. I want to say that we should be entering what they call in geography gentrification, where we see urban sprawl, where new towns are developing, and we are seeing beautiful houses. We are seeing like low-cost houses where people can live comfortably, because we cannot be talking about 2024 that is coming and vision 2035 when the basic needs of people are not attainable. You talk about basic needs. There's Abraham Maslow. Maslow talks about the pyramid. There are lower order needs and there are higher order needs. And I want to say that in 2024 that we're about entering in few hours, Cameroonians are still at the level of basic needs. The physiological needs. Cameroonians are still looking for food. Cameroonians are still struggling to look for security, shelter, and so on. Cameroonians are still looking for basic needs and so on. Cameroonians have not actualized. So I want to say that it will take a lot of time for Cameroonians to reach the apex of self-transcendence, where they will be taking care of others. Because the truth is that Cameroonians are unable to even take care of extended families because of hardship. So I think that we need to think out of the box to rebuild this country. We are talking about infrastructural development in the country where we don't have. I've gone to Nigeria, you see roads there. You understand the level of express roads that they have, where 2 cars are applying that way, 2 cars this way, you don't meet with these cars. I think that Cameroonians has to rethink. Our administrators, if they love this country, if talk about health, when our ministers are going abroad every day for quality health. COVID-19, when people embezzle money of COVID-19 till today, the COVID gate, we don't know what happened. And we are talking about CAN. When people took the CAN gate, they pocketed the money. So we have corruption is a disease, it's a cankerworm in this country. I want to say that we should not be a government, it should not be a quagmire government. So because we are saying things and we are doing something different, administrators are making money on daily basis in this country. You appoint governors, you appoint ministers, they are enriching their families and themselves in land and everything. We think that people need to love this country. You can have all the lands. It's vanity upon vanity. What legacy are you keeping for the next generation? So President Paul Biya and his government should be thinking about legacy, not their private or their selfish egoism tendencies. But I want to say that His Excellency President Paul Biya cannot be Cameroon alone. Nation building is a collective responsibility. Together we can do it.
Collective responsibility. We go on Facebook, the streets of Facebook, and let's see what our viewers have been saying. Sue Melody says, an interesting program. I'm loving it. Enko Kera says, nice program. Panelists are so intelligent. Thank you so much. This one says, we also need the Boyadwala Road. Remember not to build speed breaks. These speed breaks are the cause of potholes. From there, Abraham. Chelsea says, rubbish talk the president has just given. All right, thank you so much. That is just a few we can take in the meantime, but just to console you that before the end of this program, we must have taken all the reactions that we see on Facebook and all the messages that have been streaming in. Mr. Armstrong, you know, sport is one thing that actually unites us as a people without any fear of political, cultural affiliations. He's spoken about the 34th edition of the AFCON, and you know, and that Cameroonians should rally behind the indomitable lions so that they can get the flag of Cameroon waving. What do you have to say? What was your perception? Do you think that should be hoped with a sense of, you know, enthusiasm?
Of course, like you rightly said, sport is a unifying factor that keeps the country unity, keeps the country living together. And also we, just like the president said, he appeal on Cameroonians to rally behind the Lions. They are already in Saudi Arabia, and others are joining for their camping. And of course, they'll be having their first game on 15th of January with Guinea. And so I think that the call made by the president is a good one, because if you know very well, Mabel, you know Cameroon is known internationally because of sport, especially football. And you want to understand that for the past years, or the past Cameroon's participation in international competition, African Nation Cup, World Cup, you understand that the performance has not been something to write home about. We have seen Cameroon known as one of the powerhouse of football in Africa. Their performance has been down, and we have the performance has been largely because of crisis between FECAFOOT and executive, FECAFOOT and professional league, FECAFOOT and coaches that have been fired and or sacked, and you see the federation keep moving at the International Federation of Sport looking for cases, for cases, and all those things has been really been affecting the football in Cameroon, because those cases, Cameroon government through the FECAFOOT spend a lot of money in some of those cases. We want to understand that even the last coach which was fired and Ringo Besson brought in has been claiming billions of francs CFA from a toilet federation. And so with all this, it has really affected Cameroonians, and with the performance also, you know that even the coach that has been brought, many Cameroonians are complaining that probably that is not the best coach for Cameroon. The one that was fired is the best. But again, with all this said, I think the real issue for us to rally behind the Lions, and let's see what they are going to produce in the World Cup. That. But
what do you say they are going to produce? Do you come in here with the spirit of optimism?
Yes, of course, I have the spirit of optimism of the Lions performance. Because our last participation in World Cup, though we came out at the first round But again, our performance was something that we could really commend and measure. So with that, I'm really relying on that past performance, hoping that we are going to perform well. We are in a very difficult group, but I think Cameroon is known for something that give us surprises at the end of the time. At the end of the minute, they have a lot of surprises. So we pray that we are going to have that surprise that will take us through. I think in just what the president said, there's something I just want to comment, which is mentioned about improved security situation in the northwest and southwest, and of course in the far north region. Yes, it's true. But again, the president may mention that the security situation improved and time for reconstruction to actually take place now. So the president is actually confirming, agreeing with what many political analysts have been saying, that reconstruction cannot take place where the crisis is still ongoing. So it shows that all what has been taking place has been wasted of resources. And I'm very happy that the president at this time has really said no, since there is improved peace in security situation in this area, reconstruction can take place. He also equally mentioned of Sonora, which is something I heard him talk about. But again, I was not very happy because he talked about import substitution. You know, he made mention of the war, the Ukraine war, and equally talk about the Israeli-Hamas war, which has come into place to affect to affect many nations. They cannot have some basic commodity. But again, you forgot to understand that in a country, the country lives by food. CDC that is involved in production of banana and some cash crops. But now, ever since CDC certain portion were destroyed, we have not even heard the president come out to say, no, this is something that we need to address very urgent. Yeah, though the Sonora is good, but I think that food is very, very important. So I think this is something that the president failed to really address. Issue of the CDC, the government really needs to see how they can pay attention. We have had a lot of sector of CDC that have been burned down, but nothing has been said about that. So I think the president, like Mr. Ndefo said, the president needs to set time in his speech. He's made a lot of promises, but again, there are no time frame. He said that he instructed the government. Which sector of the government has he instructed to actually take place? Because Cameroonian needs to they need to follow the speech and take note of those institutions that the president have instructed. But when the president said he has instructed the government, it becomes very, very difficult for Cameroonian to follow. So we need to follow that. So I think probably by December 2024, when the president will come up to deliver another speech, he needs to structure the speech so that we can hold people accountable.
Yeah, I think we are almost rounding up the program. We are just a few minutes away from the program. But before we take leave of you and even close the recordings, I'm going to have members on this, unprecedented. They will give their final words, especially to Cameroonians, and I know that it's going to act as a soothing balm to Cameroonians. I'm going to begin with you, Mr. Bertrand. What are your final words to Cameroonians?
Well, my final words are firstly, talk about peace, which is very promoted to all of us. Yeah, without peace, we would have come out of our houses to join our voices to the growth of the nation. He talk about educational sector, which is bringing out the youth to stand by Cameroon, where them have failed to continue the lead. And the other area of the security, he applauded them. But if we go deep into that, the Anglophone crisis in particular needs more than just improvement. And the mechanism in place know what to do for loss of life to cut short. And I don't want to go into that. A lot of panelists have talked about that. It's a whole topic on its own. Other areas like roads, health, the president, I don't know, let him decentralize power as it has always been. Let the ministers in charge give us growth analysis of their various ministries because we cannot have 366 days and then we have a 10 seconds report on each ministry. To me, I find that very poor and for the growth of the nation. We have to hold these ministers accountable. It is part of their duty to report to their citizens their difficulties and their achievement, so that at the end of a speech like a traditional speech like this, we should really anticipate what will be said and what not should be said.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bertrand. Just like I said, we are left to just about 2 minutes. Dr. Busi, your final words to Cameroonians.
Thank you, Madam.
To make merry the new year.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. What I have to say is Cameroonians should have hope, because without hope you cannot succeed in life. And they have to be very resilient. They have been resilient. Let's be patient. Let's be optimistic. Let's be futuristic. I think that the youth, you have a lot to contribute as nation building is concerned. And I want to say that the youth should get engaged in politics. Most of them feel reluctant in politics. We have an election year that's coming, 2025. I would plead on the youth of Cameroon that they should engage in politics. They should get registered into the electoral list so that they can partake in 2025 elections, where they can change the dynamics. Because if you don't partake, you keep on complaining all the days. The head of state sit there. So we need young leaders in Cameroon, in all sphere, in the executive, in the judiciary. We need to transform our constitution. And if you have to do that, we need the youth in politics, because most of the Cameroonian youths are very reluctant in politics. They are engaged in social things, but I see them, they go, yes, parade foot, they engage themselves to parade foot. On Sunday, you see youths, they are going to play football. All the times, they call that veteran, whereas they are youths playing the veteran. This is a time for you to rethink about your future. If you don't rethink, the next generation will suffer. For we need peace and justice in Cameroon.
Thank you so much. In 2 seconds, Mr. Kishi, this is the final goodbye for this year. 2023 is fading. What do you have to say after President Biya has gone?
I just want to say a happy and prosperous new year for Cameroonians, and advise them not to count on the head of state or the government, but to work on their individual talents and make their contributions wherever they are, without over counting on the government and its apparatus, and not to also fall prey to the distraction that they should rally behind the lions. Behind the lions, the head of state enumerated the problems that we had in the system. He did not ask them to rally behind him to fight corruption. They asked them to rally behind the lions. Of what if they rally? Nobody needs to call Cameroonians to rally behind the lions. So that is a distraction. Let them join the head of state to fight corruption by doing the naming and shaming of all those who are corruptors in the system.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndifo. In line with what your co-panelists have said, any final word?
Yeah, thank you so much. I wish to use this opportunity to say a very happy and prosperous new year to all the SDF militants and to Cameroonians, and also sympathizers of the SDF, calling on them to rally forces, because the SDF is the best next alternative in this country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndifo. And Mr. Sinjo, you've been smiling. Can we have your final word?
Yes, maybe the challenges are enormous, so I just wish to call on Cameroonians to remain hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Sama Abang, who is going to put all the shima and all the icing on the beautiful cake that we have made today.
It's been the same clip that has been played over and over, so I'll very much follow suit to encourage Cameroonians to go down, sleep, lie on their laurels, and drown their hopes in the churches that are around, hoping that one day God himself will leave his throne to come and change Cameroon for us, while we keep auctioning the destiny of future generations to a bandwagon of political demons that we have created for ourselves.
Thank you so much. That was Mr. Sama Abang-Magwa. Of course, on the panel today we had Dr. Busi Enes Niba, a psycho-political analyst, Mr. Sinjo Armstrong Yasi, social and political analyst, Mr. Sama Abamago himself, a social commentator and the author of Lunamumu Don't Do, a social media platform. I will also have Mr. Njomo Cyril, the MRC militant, also known as Mayor. Mr. Ndifo Richard was also there to make sure that the show had all the steam, all the ambience, and not forgetting Mr. Poppy Bertrand, the civil engineer and the political analyst. And I've been your host, Mabel Kandem. Book up with us some other time, and not forgetting Mr. Kikishi, of course, Kenneth, who has been there to bring down, fairy tale and to make sure that the program had a smooth sail. See you next time, and have a beautiful and a prosperous new year ahead of you.